Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting of Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. President Breed.
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen present. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell not present. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer not present. Supervisor Kim. Kim present. Supervisor Peskin.
Present.
Peskin present. Supervisor Ronan. Present. Ronan present. Supervisor Safai. Safai present. Supervisor Sheehy. Sheehy present. Supervisor Tang.
Present.
Tang present. Supervisor Yee. Yee present. Supervisor Fewer. Supervisor Fewer present. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell present. Madam President, all members are present.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any communications?
There are none to report, Madam President.
Okay. Colleagues, Madam Clerk, or colleagues, today we will be approving the minutes from the April 11th board meeting, as well as the April 13th Special Budget and Finance Committee meeting and the April 13th Special Budget and Finance Federal Select Committee. And is there a motion to approve all three? Moved by Supervisor Kim, seconded by Supervisor Yee. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will be passed after public comment. Madam Clerk, please go to the next item.
Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the administrative and environment codes to require that any new passenger vehicle procured for the city fleet be a zero-emission vehicle, absent a waiver, and that all passenger vehicles in the city fleet be zero-emission vehicles by December 31st, 2022, and as technology improves, to encourage the selection of zero-emission vehicles in other vehicle classes.
Roll call vote.
On item 1, Supervisor Peskin. Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan.
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee. Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer.
Thank you.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Item number 2, please.
Item 2 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to transfer the Moscone Center Garage located at 255 3rd Street and the Performing Arts Garage at 360 Grove Street from the Parking Authority to the Municipal Transportation Agency, to assign a ground lease for certain public works property for access between the Performing Arts Garage and Goff Street, to affirm the CEQA determination and make the appropriate findings. And Madam President, this item has an 8-vote threshold pursuant to state law.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, and I just want to acknowledge the staff at SFMTA for working closely with our office on this ordinance. After speaking with them, my office and SFMTA jointly are requesting a request to continue this item to July 11th.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim has made a motion to continue this item to the meeting of July 11th, 2017, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, this item will be continued to the meeting of July 11th, 2017. Next item, please.
Item 3 is an ordinance to appropriate $5 million from funds designated for general reserve in the Public Utilities Commission wastewater enterprise to pay claims, settlements, legal expenses, and related costs due to the large volume of claims arising from the winter storms in 2016 through 17, and placing $3 million on budget and finance reserve.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 4 was referred without recommendation from the Land Use and Transportation Committee. It's an ordinance to amend the Planning Code, Section 206, to amend the 100% Affordable Housing Bonus Program to add the Home SF Program, the Analyzed State Density Bonus Program, and the Individually Requested State Density Bonus Program to provide for development bonuses and zoning modifications for increased affordable housing in compliance with and above those required by the State Density Bonus Law, to establish the procedures in which the Home SF Program shall be reviewed and approved, adding a fee for applications under the programs, and to affirm the CEQA determination and make the appropriate findings.
Supervisor Tang?
Thank you, colleagues. So today we have before us what I believe is going to be one of our city's most strongest tools for providing more affordable housing here in San Francisco over the next 20 years if we are to pass this. I just want to say that we introduced this back in 2015. We've been working on this for over 2.5 years with our planning department, and whose staff are here today to answer any questions you might have, as well as our mayor's office of housing. And over the course of 20 years for this program, we believe that we can produce about 5,000 permanently affordable housing units in San Francisco. That is more than triple the number of affordable housing units that could be produced under our city's mandatory inclusionary affordable housing laws that are on the books and which are still being negotiated. And so I do believe that in our city, we haven't done enough to support our middle-income households. Of course, we all have different definitions of what it means to be affordable, but I'll just give you an example of how we as a city have produced in our history, using taxpayer dollars, a variety of programs that fund housing or provide down payment loan assistance programs for households earning 55 to 60% of the area median income or below. And even SFUSD teachers today who earn a starting salary around $56,000 are at the 70% of the area median income bracket. So many of them are actually not qualifying for the affordable housing programs that we are producing here in San Francisco, as is. Not our teachers, not our social workers, construction workers, not even entry-level police officers. And so Home SF was designed to be an incentive program that is voluntary, that mostly applies to areas such as transit and commercial corridors, to build 30% affordable housing on site with expanded income brackets to allow more of our middle income families to survive and thrive here in San Francisco. And again, over the course of time, we have really not produced very much for middle income housing families, except that they are the most rapidly declining households in San Francisco. So my goal is to try to keep our city as diverse and incredible as it is. And so with this program, we are allowing developers to go up to 2 stories above existing height limits in exchange for density increases, as well as providing for 30% affordable housing. One aspect of this that I think is also really exciting is the fact that we do have incredibly strong language here to allow for, or to require, family-sized units. So 40% of the units would have to have 2 or 3 bedrooms, and of that, 10% must actually be 3 bedrooms. And so I do want to thank my colleagues. Over time, I think when we first introduced Home SF, it was actually the first program that had some sort of strong requirement around 2 bedrooms, which I think is crucial if people want to raise families here in San Francisco. So we started this effort back in 2015. Planning staff went around to have meetings, community meetings with every supervisorial district, some more than once. We had been in Land Use Committee a couple of times on June 13th in 2016, on May 13th, 2017, on May 8th of 2017, May 16th in 2017, and also been at Planning Commission, I think, more than twice. So there has been a lot of work that has gone into this legislation, addressing what became an ongoing negotiation with the inclusionary program, which is mandatory in San Francisco. When we first started, that conversation was actually not happening. So over time, we've actually made so many amendments to ensure that our programs actually are very complementary to each other. And so today, I do have a couple more amendments that actually reflect what was asked of me during your inclusionary negotiations. So for example, for the below market rate units in the ownership categories, I will be making an amendment to change the unit pricing to be offered at 80%, 105%, and 130% of the area median income, We are also going to be modifying the unit distribution between rental and ownership programs so that in the rental program and ownership program, 12% of the units would be offered at the lowest tier, 9% of the units would be offered at the middle tier, and then another 9% of the units would be offered at the highest tier. We also have an amendment, lastly, regarding Home SF and District 9 as to how it would apply. And so Home SF would apply to District 9 parcels until an ordinance is adopted by the Board of Supervisors, directing the Planning Department to study the creation of an area plan, wholly or partially located in Supervisorial District 9. So those are the three major amendments that I am proposing today. I'm sure we're going to get into discussion more about this further. But really, I think this is so important for us to remember how much affordable housing we're going to be providing through the Home SF. And I know that some folks got caught up in the percentages of what level distribution we were going to offer affordable housing units at, especially for the lowest income brackets at 55% of the area median income for rentals. And I will just say that at that time, we had an even split of 10% across the board. And despite 10% sounding like it's less than 12%, 10% of more units equates to actually more number of units. So I want people to truly understand that. And of course, I know there were some issues with how people were calculating the Home SF program, and I'm happy to answer questions if colleagues still have those issues that they want to address. But I do have to thank so many people who helped work on this Home SF program for so many years. Kirsten Dissinger, Anne-Marie Rogers, and Paolo Ikezoe from Planning Department, Kate Hartley from MOHCD. And this program has taken so long that there were already 2 staff changes during that time. So Sophie Hayward from formerly MOHCD and Menika Mohan from Planning, want to thank them as well. Deanna Keyson from my office. And of course, all the community members who said, yes, in my backyard. I do want people to live here in San Francisco. And the fact that, yes, everyone deserves a home. So I encourage colleagues that we can please vote to support Home SF today. But I do know we have more questions, so I'm happy to answer those as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. Supervisor Tang has made a motion to amend and is seconded by Supervisor Safai. Colleagues, can we take those amendments without objection? Without objection, those amendments pass. Supervisor Ronan.
Thank you. I wanted to start off by thanking you again, Supervisor Tang, for working so hard on this legislation over such a long period of time and for moving the conversation forward about the desperate need we have to build more housing and especially affordable housing in San Francisco. And I wanted to thank you for accepting the amendments that you just described. And I'll talk a little bit more about the reasoning behind that amendment. And then I wanted to offer an additional amendment. But just to provide some context, during my time on the campaign trail, which was not that long ago, I would hear over and over again from my constituents that building affordable housing was their top priority. And over the last 4 months, my office has been laser focused on ensuring that every project that comes before us has the maximum number of affordable units. And I will continue to do that work. I believe that upzoning is a really important part of and tool to get to those affordable units that we so desperately need. And I appreciate the work that you've done over the past couple days with some of our colleagues to sort of link up Home SF with the inclusionary law that will be before us shortly. My district has already begun the important discussion of how to move forward with district-wide zoning, and while still maintaining the important character of our neighborhoods in San Francisco. I commend all supervisors who are also looking to do that work, especially supervisors on the west side of the city who have been far behind districts like mine in developing new housing. But as is so often the case with zoning and development, the devil's in the details. And while I'm supportive of Home SF in its current negotiated form, I have the 2 amendments, one of which we already made, that I believe are critical for this law. And I want to explain a little bit the reasoning behind why we put an amendment into the law that would allow Home SF to be suspended if an area plan is created in the portion of my district south of Mission.
I live in the Portola, the neighborhood. It's actually called the Portola. Very few people believe me when I pronounce the name of my neighborhood. And it's an old San Francisco neighborhood that was started by Portuguese immigrants. It was known as the San Francisco Garden District because small farmers grew flowers there and then sold those flowers to residents downtown. It's a multicultural neighborhood with families, locally owned small businesses, and close neighbors. And you used to be able to walk from the Portola straight over to the Alamany Farmers Market area and then to the Bernal Flats. These south of the Mission neighborhoods at one point were connected and were integrated into the rest of the city. So you might be asking yourselves, and I know the board members here know a little bit more about the Portola because of work we've done creating the official garden district, but most San Franciscans have never heard of the Portola. And you might ask yourself, why is that? And that's because in the 1950s, the federal government placed massive freeways right through the heart of our small city. And those freeways isolated and in some cases destroyed places like the waterfront, Hayes Valley, and the Portola. The bad design of the area surrounding the freeways has also made an unwalkable parking lot out of Alamany and isolated whole communities of people. We've been lucky that the city has been able to save the waterfront and Hayes Valley, but no work has yet been done to fix the mess that has been made out of Bernal, Alamany, and the Portola. Neighbors and the District 9 office have been in discussion for years about how to begin the process of creating a comprehensive area plan for neighborhoods south of the Mission that will address our serious lack of transportation and walkability, our bisected neighborhoods and isolated commercial corridors, and our lack of affordable housing. Area plans like the ones created for Market and Octavia, Western Soma, and the Eastern neighborhoods created a vision and a pathway for livability and healthy communities in our city. I'm determined to have a comprehensive area plan for the south of the Mission neighborhoods as soon as is humanly possible. I'll say again that I believe that upzoning and raising heights and adding density is an important tool to solving our housing crisis. And while I'm supportive of Home SF and the sweeping rezoning of the city, I know that planning and zoning, a detailed analysis is always more effective than blanket policy. I'm going to vote for Home SF today, but I want to make sure that that detailed lot-by-lot upzoning process that we will be doing in the near future in the south of the Mission neighborhoods will not be superseded by Home SF when we begin that work. And I want to thank again Supervisor Tang for accepting this amendment. So that explains a bit about one of the handouts, and it's already incorporated into law, and we already just approved that amendment to the legislation. I now want to introduce another amendment, and it's particularly related to legacy businesses and the intersection with Home SF, and I pass that out to you as well. The second amendment is important to the entire cultural character and economy of San Francisco. 2 years ago, the voters of San Francisco overwhelmingly passed Proposition J, the legislation that created the Legacy Business Registry. Legacy businesses are locally owned, small businesses that are 30 years or older and have proven that they are a historic and cultural asset to the city of San Francisco. Studies show that legacy businesses are a critical part of our economy, responsible for a major part of our tourism, and serve as anchor businesses for our commercial corridors. Since the passage of Prop J, the Legacy Business Program in San Francisco is enormously popular and gets news coverage whenever a new legacy business is placed on the registry. Saving San Francisco's unique culture has become intrinsically tied to the Legacy Business Program. Now, we can all agree, I assume, that the purpose of Home SF is to make development of one-story buildings more desirable to developers. Unfortunately, one of the side effects of new development is the demolishing of old buildings and often the businesses that it contains. No one knows better than the District 9 supervisor the effect of small developments on the culture of a neighborhood. And during the affordable housing crisis, we've often found ourselves having to make really tough decisions between preserving 100-year-old buildings or building new housing. But where I believe we need to draw the line is in the eviction and the demolition of legacy businesses that are the stewards of San Francisco's identity and culture. While I want Home SF to achieve its purpose and do what it was designed to do and encourage more housing development, and especially the development of affordable housing, I believe we need some balance to preserve legacy business that create the grit, the character, the culture, the nostalgia that makes the commercial corridors of San Francisco truly the envy of the world. And while I want Home SF to be successful, I don't want cookie-cutter neighborhoods all throughout San Francisco where the same type of upscale boutiques are underneath the brand new condo developments that are all throughout the city. I believe we can tweak this legislation in a very minor way and build more housing at the same time while preserving the very, very special businesses that house so much of San Francisco's history. And legacy businesses are not like any other business. They have been determined by the city of San Francisco after a lengthy process to be a cultural and historic asset of the city. And let me remind you for a minute how difficult it is to be placed on the legacy registry in the first place. First, you must be nominated by a member of this body or the mayor. Second, you must be voted a cultural asset by the Small Business Commission. And third, you must be voted a historic asset by the Historic Preservation Commission. Encouraging the demolition of legacy businesses that have gone through this extensive vetting process and are deemed economic, cultural, and historic assets of the city would be foolhardy at best and tragic at worst. After conversations with some of my colleagues, I've amended my original amendment from excluding all legacy businesses that are eligible to be part of the registry to just the legacy businesses that rent space in a building that have already gone through the process and have officially received legacy business status. The number of legacy businesses on the registry is small. It will be ever growing, but it's small. And in the last 2 years since Prop J passed, only 86 businesses were on the registry as of last month. And the vast majority of these businesses are already not eligible for Home SF. So we're really talking about a very minor impact on this legislation. But let me tell you some of these businesses that are on the legacy registry that might be in peril if we don't exclude them from this legislation. We're talking about assets and businesses like Green Apple Books, Joe's Ice Cream, Perry San Francisco, Real Food Company, VIP Coffee and Cake Shop, Noriega Produce, Cole Hardware, San Francisco Prosthetic Services, Pappenhausen Hardware, Anchor Oyster Bar, and the Cove on the Castro. And those are just the businesses and some of the businesses that have already been placed on the registry. But I can think of businesses that I and the neighborhood loves in my district that I haven't yet nominated, that I plan to nominate, that will be at risk if they are not excluded from this legislation. These are businesses like Good Life Grocery, Rockapolco, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and so many more. So today I'm putting forth an amendment, it's a minor amendment, to exclude buildings from Home SF if it demolishes or removes any space rented by a legacy business that is on the legacy business registry. We cannot, in good conscience, in my opinion, pass this legislation without fixing this unintended consequences to legacy business and preserving them for future generations. And colleagues, I ask for you and hope for your support of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Ronan, just for clarity, I have 2 amendments.
Yes, sorry. So I passed out 2 amendments. One has already been incorporated by Supervisor Tang and amended, and that's the one that's Supervisor Ronan D9 Area Plan Amendment. You can just recycle that. We've already passed that. The amendment that I'm discussing right now is the one that's titled Supervisor Ronan Legacy Business Amendment.
Okay, thank you. So Supervisor Ronan has made a motion to amend. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Feuer. Supervisor Yee. And before I let you speak, Supervisor Yee, I just want to let you all know that I know that there's a lot of members of the board who'd like to speak on this particular item, but we do have members, individuals that we will be honoring today. And so when 2:30 hits, I will interrupt this discussion to acknowledge them so that they're not here waiting for a lengthy period of time through this discussion. Supervisor Yee.
I Again, I see that Supervisor Tang wanted to respond to this particular amendment. Is that correct? And without missing my turn, can I just let her respond and then otherwise
Okay,
this
as
could be
long
it?
as Supervisor Safai and Supervisor Fuhrer were next on the roster, is that okay? Okay, Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Ronan, for all of your work and leadership, and especially under David Campos for around legacy businesses. We all, I think all 11 of us care a lot about small businesses, whether you're legacy, whether you're new, and contribute, I think, equally to our communities. Again, and we may disagree on that, but I have seen new businesses come into our neighborhoods that have just done so much to bring life to our communities. Planning department did analysis on Home SF based on about 200 or so parcels, most of them being vacant or parking lots or gas stations and so forth. And that was where that number came from in terms of the 5,000 permanently affordable housing units that we think we could produce through Home SF over 20 years. Now, based on that analysis and those 200-something parcels, they believe that about each year, maybe 5 businesses might be impacted by Home SF. Now, of course, I would never want to displace even 5 businesses in San Francisco. But with that said, Home SF actually has the strongest, I'm going to repeat, the strongest provisions around small businesses that we could possibly have in San Francisco. No other law or program does what we do. And the reason is because state law actually has a prohibition against commercial rent control. And, you know, if you want, we can have our city attorneys opine on that, but we can't do anything remotely close to us imposing on property owners commercial rent control. So what we did was we said, we're going to mandate that there could be at least 18 months notification when a project sponsor pulls their environmental evaluation. So it's about 18 months. We ensure that there is notification not only to the business, but also to OAWD so that there can be wraparound services offering them assistance if they need to relocate, if they want to come back, and so forth. We actually have in our legislation as well 6 conditional use findings that the Planning Commission needs to make specifically around the type of businesses that would be potentially dislocated, as displaced, as well as what type of businesses they are. Are they legacy business? Are they formula retail? And then at a last land use committee meeting, we actually put in a requirement that unless there's already formula retail on the ground floor, or unless it might be fringe financial, mortuary, automobile sales, or gas station, that actually formula retail won't be able to come into the ground floor. We also require that there be like-for-like square footage replacement on the ground floor so that the smaller businesses will not get displaced by a bigger business. So if we were to layer on more and more restrictions onto the Home SF program, there will be more and more people who will find the state density bonus law more attractive, as well as the hybrid law more attractive. And I'll just say that my fear, although it's perfectly well and available to developers to use the other laws, that they don't have any protections for businesses at all in those programs. So I just want to make it very clear that I care a lot about our businesses. In fact, I've done a lot of work around it, whether it's permitting streamlining for restaurants, funding the first ever small business acceleration program, staffer at OAWD. I care a lot about small businesses. So we put as much as we possibly could in Home SF, and that is why I cannot support this legacy business amendment, because we need to do all that we can to support all types of businesses. And yes, the legacy business registry will grow over time, and it will include more businesses where development cannot happen. And of course, we always have to make that hard decision. Do we want to support more development of affordable housing, or do we want to support businesses? And it is a difficult conversation, but I feel that Home SF has absolutely tried to take that into consideration and put the strongest provisions in here possible that it doesn't exist anywhere else in city or state law. So again, I know that we're approaching 2:30, but those are my points on legacy business.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. And again, I'm going to interrupt this discussion because it is 2:30, and we have several 2:30 commendations. And so with that, I want to start with Supervisor Farrell, who has 2 commendations.
Okay, thank you, President Breed. Colleagues, thanks for giving the time today. So I think a lot of us have the opportunity once in a while to honor people here Whether we're born and raised San Franciscans like a lot of us are, whether we come from different areas, people that have had an impact on our lives for decades, literally. And today I get to honor two people that were actually my grammar school teachers, two of my grammar school teachers who are here today. I know they are here with a number of people. So I would like to ask Ms. O'Malley, Mr. Bowers, if you would both come on up, and everyone who is here with you, come on up as well, up to the podium around here. Don't be shy about it. Come on up. And as they come up, first I would like to ask the head of school for Stewart Hall School for Boys, where I had the honor of attending and where my children go to school, to come up, Mr. Jaime Dominguez, to come up and say a few words.
All right, thank you, Mark. So first of all, again, my name is Jaime Dominguez, and I'm the very proud head of school at Stewart Hall for Boys. And so I'm honored to be here today to recognize two individuals who have had a profound impact on the lives of thousands of students, and in particular, specifically, boys in San Francisco for nearly 4 decades during their careers. So specifically, we're here to honor Carol O'Malley, who has been an educator for 43 years, 37 of which are here in San Francisco at Stewart Hall for Boys, and her colleague, Glenn Bowers, who has taught for 40 years, 39 of which have been at the same institution of Stewart Hall for Boys. So these two individuals, I think, advance our mantra at our school, which really believes that there's no other variable in the lives of students that has a bigger, profound impact than the teachers that they have during their career. And specifically, I like to just share with you a credo that our school lives by. It's actually is a quote that was penned by the person our school is named after, Sister Janet Erskine Stewart. And she said, "We must remember it is better to begin a great work than to finish a small one. Our education is not meant to be for the children to turn them out small and finished, but seriously begun on a wide basis. They must leave us with some self-knowledge, some purpose, and some energy." And as somebody who is their supervisor and their boss, I can tell you that these two individuals live out that mantra like no other teachers that we have. So it's a great honor to recognize them today. And I know that Supervisor Farrell will take it from here. But before I turn it over to him, I do want to also recognize that we're here today to recognize these two individuals, along with one of our most revered and important members of our community, a proud alum of Stewart Hall for Boys, and that's Mark Farrell, who is our supervisor in District 2. And in addition to having these two individuals who taught Mark, one as his PE teacher, the other one as his enrichment teacher, we have two other individuals here. One who was his kindergarten teacher, so Miss Mary Holt, and the other that was his second grade teacher, Janet Crooks Freeberg. So in many ways, we're recognizing these two individuals, but at the same time, recognizing Supervisor Mark Farrell. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Dominguez. I think we should all bring our grammar school teachers back to honor them here at the Board of Supervisors. So first up, Ms. O'Malley, I want to honor you. So if you would come up to the microphone real quick. So colleagues, just to give you a bit about Ms. O'Malley and her background, she was born in Louisiana, moved around a lot when her father was in the military, earned her bachelor's from St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. She moved to San Francisco in 1980 and started working at Convent in Stewart Hall and started teaching 3rd grade in 1990. She is married to Michael, who is here. Hi, Michael. How are you? Congratulations. She has a ton of friends around the world, including a close group knit of friends called the Carmelites. I think many who are here. Raise your hand if you're part of it. Love it. And in retirement, she plans to, I understand, recover for a year before doing a lot of things, volunteering at Oakwood and Guide Dogs for the Blind. So, Ms. O'Malley, you are one of these people that, you know, when my children started going back to Stewart Hall and Convent, one of these just amazing people that it's been an honor that you're back in our lives as a family. One of these people that I just remember as an institution of the school that I went to and grew up with and had such an impact on my life. So I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me personally, for the entire community. We're here to honor you on behalf of the entire city of San Francisco. But thank you for all that you've done. And colleagues, I know we're breaking with a little protocol here. I appreciate our clerk and our president of the board. But the thing that's unique about Miss O'Malley is that she's also my son's third grade teacher right now. And so Jack is here, and so actually I wanted to say a few words as well. So, Jack?
Miss O'Malley, on behalf of our third grade class, we would like to thank Mrs. O'Malley for a wonderful year. We feel so lucky we could have her as a teacher before she retired. One of our favorite things was Mrs. O'Malley's unique phrases and words to describe things such as scrumptious and exquisite. Miss O'Malley is always so kind and helpful, and no matter what, she always has a smile on her face. She is constantly giving boys in our class and in our school support and encouragement. She makes learning fun and interesting. This year, she has made me a development of a love of reading and challenged me in math. Our school will not be the same without you, and we hope you will come back and visit. Coach.
So, Ms. O'Malley, on behalf of all of the alums and now the city of San Francisco, thank you, congratulations to you, and the microphone is yours. Congratulations.
Thank you, Supervisor Mark Farrell and Jack Farrell, for a lovely, lovely tribute. It's such a treat to be able to teach here in San Francisco. Just this year, we've taken our third graders to the Asian Art Museum, the Angler's Lodge, the Bison Paddock. We're going to Chinatown to celebrate the rich diversity of our city. Many people say that education is a gift, but to be a teacher and to be one of those who delivers that to a child, that truly is the greatest gift of all. So I thank you all.
Okay, so next up, I get to honor somebody that I've literally known since kindergarten, and that's Mr. Glenn Bowers. Mr. Bowers, you want to come on up? So a little bit about Mr. Bowers' background, some that I just learned, by the way, getting some talking points here. He was born in Berkeley and raised in Oakland. He was a Duncan yo-yo champion of the East Bay growing up, believe it or not. He got his BA from San Francisco State, played baseball in college, was offered to play for the Mets, but wanted to come back to teach. He's been teaching for 40 years, and Miss O'Malley has been at our school for 37 years, Mr. Bowers for 39 years. I had Mr. Bowers as a kindergartner and throughout grammar school. Simply one of those people that you just remember in life. Certainly someone who enjoyed playing sports a lot in grammar school and beyond. Certainly someone I looked up to for years, and I can't think of how many teams you coached me on in different seasons. He's affectionately known as Coachy to all of the children at Stewart Hall, including all the girls at Convent, including my daughter, who calls him Coachy. He's also coached for baseball and basketball and a number of other sports. Married to Debbie, has 3 sons, one who I met here walking in, and one who if that was him, who traveled quite a distance to come here today. We're going to miss you a ton. I can't imagine Stewart Hall without you, Mr. Bowers, and certainly with Mr. St. Clair the other year. But you've been an institution, and I just want to say thank you so much for all that you've done for me, for all the alums, for the city of San Francisco. And then, not to repeat myself here, but also not only was Mr. Bowers my teacher, PE teacher, he is Jack's PE teacher as well. So you're seeing a pattern here. So Jack also wanted to say a few words about Mr. Bowers here.
Coachy. Coach Bowers, or Coachy, as he is known around school, has been my PE teacher since kindergarten. With 40 boys in our class, he has done a great job of making PE fun by learning new games and sports, but most importantly, teaching us good sportsmanship. He has always he always knows just the right thing to say to put a smile on our faces. For example, recently I got hurt in PE, and he said, "If you catch this ball, you can be on the Warriors." Thank you for being such a great teacher, and we will miss you.
Mr. Bowers, likewise, now on behalf of the entire city of San Francisco, thank you for everything. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
And the floor is yours.
Okay. When I was a kid, my dad used to say, whatever profession you pick, make sure you enjoy it. Well, I did better than that. I love my profession. And when I got a job at Stewart Hall, I figured I'd only be there for 2 or 3 years because at the time, public schools made more money, and I thought I would do that. But I love Stewart Hall. When I got to know it, all the kids, the faculty, the administration, it was just a great place to be. I mean, I'd go home sometimes thinking I had the best job in the world, and I really think I did. Thank you very much.
So, President Bree, maybe I will take the crowd out to take some pictures. We have some certificates, and Mr. Bowers, sorry, these are for Miss O'Malley. So congratulations, you guys.
Okay, congratulations again on your retirement, and I want to apologize for all kids who went through your program and gave you heck.
There were none of those.
Thank you. Okay, we have next up me. I have 3 commendations here today, so I'm going to ask my colleagues to bear with me. We have some incredible people that I want to honor, and I want to start with Officer Joanne Walker from the Park Police Station. Please come forward. Joanne Walker, thank you for being here, Officer Walker. She serves as a police officer at Park Police Station under the leadership of John Sanford, the captain of Park Police Station. Thank you so much, Captain Sanford, for being here as well. Recently, Officer Walker responded to a report of a drunk man in a wheelchair who was clearly in distress. When she arrived on the scene, she found an elderly gentleman who was disabled, drinking beer, and had obviously urinated on himself. Officer Walker saw this was a man in need and attempted to offer him services. He became extremely verbally abusive towards her and tried to flee into oncoming traffic. Officer Walker was able to physically stop the individual and speak with him in a calming manner. Despite his combative nature, Officer Walker told the gentleman she was going to assist him across the street for his own safety. Partway across the street, the gentleman stopped abruptly and was adamant he would not move from the roadway. She was not deterred. She remained calm and calmly continued to talk to him until she was able to escort him to the nearest sidewalk. Once they arrived, she knew that this man needed medical care and that jail was not the appropriate course of action. She requested the paramedics and waited with the gentleman until they arrived. Despite his continued verbally aggressive behavior, when the paramedics arrived, they determined the gentleman needed a medical evaluation and escorted him to the local hospital. Officer Walker is a crisis intervention team trained officer, and her continued professionalism and human kindness have been recognized by the former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Captain Sanford has mentioned Officer Walker's continued dedication to community policing and praises her continued patience and willingness to go above and beyond her duties. And today, Officer Walker is with us and has yet again shown that she has gone above and beyond her duties. With her today are a group of young people that she mentors during her free time. She spends her time and resources with these young people, encouraging them to dream big and to see their own hard work and accomplishments. We are lucky to have an incredible woman like Officer Walker among our police force as a mentor to children. And, you know, just the stories, this is one story of the many stories that we hear constantly about something that is just not appreciated enough. And whenever someone says to Officer Walker, thank you, we appreciate you, we are very appreciative of the work you have done. She always says, I'm just doing my job. And, you know, the job that you're doing is exactly what we hope that every police officer in the department will look at as an example of how to do their job. The kindness, the support, the generosity, the love, the way that you treat people, regardless of the challenges that you face every single day, including putting your life on the line, is something that we truly appreciate and we are grateful for. And this is why we are honoring you today for not just the service that you do in uniform, but also the service and mentoring out of the uniform. Officer Walker, on behalf of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, it is my honor to honor you today for your incredible work. Thank you.
Thank you, President Reed and Board of Supervisors. I really do appreciate this acknowledgement, but it would not be right if I just took it and walked off and said, thanks, bye. Because I know that once I take the uniform off, I am just a simple community member. And what I would hope after I take the uniform off, at the end of a long career, at the end of a long day, that the right officer is going to come to me if I'm in crisis, if someone in my family is in crisis, and they have done that. People who have, I've taught over at the university, California State University, East Bay. Many of them have graduated and gone on to a variety of careers. One career in particular, nursing, was the one that really touched me personally because they were able to help my mom, who had been rear-ended by a drunken driver. Gas tank exploded, received burns over 37% of her body, 7 years of reconstructive surgery. And those men and women who graduated from Cal State East Bay, they were right there by her side, treating her just like she was their mother. I saw that, and I said, if I ever got the opportunity to serve in the community, I could be someone who could be trusted. I learned by their example, and I hope that I can continue to showcase that as I go through my career. And thank you very much for the community who supports me and who came here today. They represent crisis support, the clergy, members in the community who said, we want you to go home safely, come in here and let us train you. People who just listened to me and said, hey, look, you can do more, Officer Walker. Find the hole. It's there. You can do more. Fill it and give hope to others because others gave hope to you. So I say thank you to all of you.
Thank you. All right, folks. Thank you again, Officer Walker, for being here and for your service to the city. We're so proud. Colleagues, today I have another incredible honor, someone who has been a part of the great San Francisco community since the 1970s. I want to ask Cowboy, Mr. Preston Worthy, to come on up to the podium. Thank you, Mr. Worthy, for being here today.
Thank you.
On the occasion of your retirement from the San Francisco Unified School District, Mr. Worthy's been in San Francisco since the 1970s. He's had a really strong presence since then of working in the school district, working with challenging kids to work with, including my brothers and some of the kids I grew up with. Both you and Jack, I know Jack is here from Omega Boys Club. You both have been incredible people and consistent in your work and your advocacy and your love for making sure that you steer young people on the right path. You know, some of our young people did not make it, but there are so many that have, that graduated from college, that went on to do great things in life, and then they come back to you and say, thank you. And those are the days I know that you've worked for every single day of your life, just to hear one of those kids come back and say, thank you, you saved my life. And there are so many lives like that that you've saved, and we are truly grateful. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about your work, not only working in the Mega Boys Club, but also going up to juvenile hall on a regular, visiting with young people, trying to have the conversations to get them to turn their lives around, so that even if that was the first visit to juvenile, you were hoping that it would be the last. And I think that the work that you've done and the numbers, when we look at juvenile hall and just how we were overly crowded in juvenile hall in the 1980s and the 1990s, and how now juvenile hall is not at capacity, I think that speaks volumes to the kind of work that you have done to help those young people and to help other young people not become victims of that trap in the first place. Mr. Worthy earned his nickname Cowboy from his students at my former high school, Galileo High School, where he worked as an at-risk counselor and coordinator. You might have remembered him. He worked at so many schools in San Francisco, including McAteer, when it was McAteer, which is now School of the Arts, Woodrow Wilson, which is now, I think, Philip Burton, and Balboa High School, where he spent many years. He's been a friend, a teacher, a counselor, a father figure, a coach. Anything you needed him to be at the time when you needed someone, he's been that person. And so now he is retiring, and after so many years of being a part of the San Francisco community, he's returning home to York, Pennsylvania, where his mother has said, look, I'm about to turn 90, you need to come home. And so he's on his way home, but we want you to know, Mr. Worthy, that we appreciate your service. We appreciate your love for San Francisco and for the young people of San Francisco, for the many lives you saved. And I know that you probably have not ever been really recognized properly, which is why when Sean Richard from Brothers Against Guns mentioned to me that you were leaving, I had to take this opportunity to say thank you on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco for your service, for your love, for your commitment. And even though you're headed home to Pennsylvania, you'll always have a place to call home here in San Francisco. Thank you for your service.
When someone had called and told a friend of mine that I was going to be honored down at City Hall, and I said, for what? Okay, because the work that I do and many others do, we do it from the heart. And I want to thank the City and County of San Francisco for trusting me as a role model for working with a lot of San Francisco difficult youth. My mother worked at a state hospital in Embryville, Pennsylvania, and I was like 6 or 7 years old, and she would take me to the state hospital, and I've seen her work with some difficult patients, and there was a fence around, and there was a gym, and she said, you go up there and you stand up there and don't come down. And that's exactly what I did, but I had no idea that I would have the same type of magic and compassion and understanding and words of discipline and words of maturity as my mother did. I didn't think I would have that. So when I came out into the world, I found myself in strange places, talking to strange people, and I was giving them good advice. And what I learned about it was, what made me very unique was, adults would come and say, Cowboy, can you talk to those kids because I can? And I could. And I'm very proud of that I found the wisdom and the understanding and the courage to talk to difficult youth. People ask me all the time, Cowboy, what do you do? I talk to strangers. That's who I talk to, people that I don't know, because there's a message that they need to hear too. I want to thank Jack, Sean, Siobhan, Stephanie. I want to thank the people at Balboa High School. I've been at Balboa High School for 22 years. And I was at that high school, and that high school was a wreck. And I remember 42 teachers walked out of that high school. Some of my friends that was crying and said, Cowboy, we can't take it anymore. And I remember Leyte and Toby turned to me and he said, well, Cowboy, what are you going to do? I said, I'm staying. We're going to straighten this mess out. Because I knew what some of these kids needed, and that was discipline, understanding, a better attitude, better behavior. They needed somebody that they could trust. And that was the foundation that I built my character on. And they do come back and give me thank you. But one of the thank yous that I get from them that keeps me going is, Cowboy, we could trust you. And that's something that I will take back to my mother, back to York, Pennsylvania. And I want to thank the Board of Supervisors, and I want to thank the City and County of San Francisco for giving me the opportunity to work with your youth behind your back, knowing that there was somebody that you could trust to put these kids in the right direction so they could graduate and be somebody respected in society. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here today, and we'll see you soon, hopefully, when you come back to visit. And with that, before I go to my last commendation, which will probably take a while for Mr. Olson Lee, I'm going to allow Supervisor Ronan to do her commendation, and we'll come back to mine because I'm sure other members of the board will have something to say for that as well.
Thank you. I'd like to call the fabulous Laura Guzman up to the mic. Surrounded by her beloved community. Exactly, of course. Surprised they're not banging down the door. Miss Laura Guzman. Oh, I'm a little emotional. Today I am incredibly honored and incredibly proud to commend Laura Guzman, the founding director of Mission Neighborhood Resource Center. MNRC is located in the Mission District, and it is one of the most beautiful assets that we have in the district, providing dignity and loving care to homeless adults in our neighborhood. Laura, you have been the backbone of MNRC for over 15 years. I can't imagine the organization without you, quite frankly.
And we just want to thank you and acknowledge you for not only being a relentless advocate to the most vulnerable people in our community, but to do it with every single inch of your heart and your soul. You have a bold vision to end poverty and defy the current state of affairs that blame low-income people for the difficult circumstances that they endure. You are a luchadora, primero, and you fight for self-determination of all people, born in San Francisco or internationally. You have fought for the rights of people with disabilities, substance abuse issues, chronic illness, for Latino communities, immigrants, and for sexual and gender minorities. You are truly a beloved, beloved champion of people. We also love how you bring your full self to everything you do, sometimes at peril to yourself because you give so much.
That's what I'm leaving now.
You are a straight shooter in policy discussions. You always reminding us about what is right and grounding everything you do in compassion. And we love the balance that you bring, always fighting with fierceness, but yet a beautiful smile and fun and humor and dance and art and creativity and style. I mean, look at you. And at the same time that I am devastated, I'm really, truly devastated, Laura. I've known you for 15 years. I can't imagine the mission without you. I can't imagine not standing by your side and fighting every important fight for the heart and soul of the city and dignity and people. But I am so happy for Alameda County because they're about to get a treat that they have no idea what they're about to get. And as long as you continue to fight in this region and in this state and in this country and in this world for justice for all people and dignity of all people, then we know that we will be fighting right alongside you. I cannot thank you enough for everything you have done for San Francisco. You are a true treasure. I love you. I have so much gratitude, and I want to congratulate you at 15 years of incredible, incredible work. And before I pass the mic over to you, I know that Supervisor Kim wanted to say a few words as well.
Hi, Laura. I just want to reiterate everything that Supervisor Ronan just said. It is very hard for me to imagine San Francisco without you and your work and your leadership. You have truly provided intelligent, compassionate, thoughtful, and dedicated service, analysis, thinking, and leadership around our crisis around homelessness and affordable housing. And it is so hard to imagine doing this work without you being in the room and doing this work without knowing that you're at MNRC, on the floor, working to support so many of our most vulnerable individuals. It's so rare to find individuals like you, and that's why there's so many people that are standing here today. And of course, you're surrounded by individuals that are like you. But this work is so hard, it's grueling, it's heartbreaking, it sets us back, and yet you always do it with a smile, and you're always able to balance this this perspective that combines compassion with actual solutions. And that is so hard to find as well. But I'm going to really miss you. Your heart, your brain, your love, your compassion, everything that you've given to San Francisco. Again, I cannot imagine MNRC without you. I can't imagine San Francisco without you. And to the staff at MNRC, really, I think that you are a model example of how we want to serve people. And it's so hard to do that every day on a consistent basis, to provide people that are at the bottom of their luck and coming in with so many things, and yet always receiving that with patience and compassion every single time. And the community service programs that you've started in the Mission neighborhood, to this atmosphere of tolerance and acceptance that allows people to know that this is a safe space that they can go to. I just wish there were more spaces like you. And so thank you. And, MNRC is always special in my heart. Besides the Women's and Ladies' Night that I always enjoyed so much, it was a place that I went to when Coalition for the Homeless asked me to go through the shelter reservation process. And so just thank you and your entire staff and community for all your work.
I want to thank you, the Board of Supervisors. And I think I've been coming, this is my second home, probably longer than anybody except for Angela Calvillo. Am I correct? 22 years coming, because I've been working for 22 on behalf of our communities. I want to thank you because this board has really saved the day to the Mission Neighborhood Resource Center since we opened. We faced under the prior mayoral administration a lot of challenges from the day we opened, and it was this board that over and over came back to say we want a safe space for the mission communities impacted by homelessness. So thank you to the whole board, to the historical board, to Angela, who's still here with us. I'm also going to say to Aaron, I was going to say you've been here as old as, we're as old as each other, but you haven't been that long here, but thank you, Aaron. And in particular, I want to thank Jane and Hillary, because District 6 and District 9, by the way, we were with District 6 for a while, I think until 4 or 5 years ago. Those two district supervisors and all of the aides. Can we give an applause to the aides that work their butts off? No matter what the need has been, we always have the two districts, always to the service of our community, and that is what I'm also here to thank you. I also, of course, cannot do this work without thanking, and you already did, but let me do it one more time. The staff, raise your hand, that every day for the last 16 years we've been doing this work. Come on, homies. And to our community members who are also here to honor me and to honor our work, please raise your hand, our community members. And to the Coalition on Homelessness, that as a young child arriving in 1995, I was really informed by the Coalition's fierce representation of people impacted by homelessness in our work every day. The Coalition really owes the Resource Center also a lot of our leadership and our programming and our love. So let's give an applause to the Coalition. And I want to also honor the Mission Neighborhood Center, and I know Brenda and Fernando are in the back, who took the leadership 16 years ago to do something that was not done in the mission. And I think we are hoping, and I only have few pins, but if you come to my party on Thursday, you'll get more, the Cap Street Love that we built, and we hope this board takes with you my legacy, and I know you guys can live without me, but I know these folks are going to make sure we continue to have the leadership of the people impacted in the decision-making of what happens to end homelessness. And I really hope that you keep doing the hearings that are needed to hear directly from our community, because not everybody in the city is hearing from the most impacted. And if there is one legacy, it's that legacy of the Cap Street Love that says it's only those that are impacted by homelessness that really have the solution in addition to the experts. So keep doing those hearings, but also let's try to do it in an integrated way without forgetting who really should be at the table. And being inclusive means you need black and brown people at your table. They're the majority of homeless people in this city. If they're not at your table, we're not going to solve homelessness. Thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Ten more.
Supervisor Ronan, you want to do a group picture outdoors? Okay. Congratulations on your new position, and thank you for your service. Okay, folks, last but certainly not least, I want to ask the Director of the Mayor's Office of Housing to come forward, Mr. Olson Lee. Or is it now the Office of Housing? I mean, who knows? These names change all the time. Hello, Olson. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Supervisor. How are you,
Okay.
Madam President?
Guess who's retiring, folks? After all these years, someone who we thought would never leave the city and county of San Francisco, someone who grew up in this city and graduated from your favorite high school, Supervisor Cohen and Tang's Lowell High School. Fun little fact about Mr. Lee. We're honoring the director of the San Francisco Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development on the occasion of his retirement from his position. I'm still surprised that you're even leaving. So it's taken a minute to get adjusted. But not only has Mr. Lee managed the city's housing pipeline by financing the development, rehabilitation, and purchase of affordable housing in San Francisco, he's been grappling with, the city's intense affordable housing crises, and all the while dealing with the politics surrounding it. Many of the things that we talk about on a regular basis here at the board, including inclusionary housing, the density bonus, the affordable housing preference, what to do about our former redevelopment agency assets, and so on. The pressure has been on him to help us deal with the biggest housing shortage in San Francisco history. Olson and I go way back prior to his tenure, where he currently serves as the director of the Office of Housing and Community Development. He served at the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency Commission. He was the deputy executive director, and he and I would fight all the time when I was a commissioner. You didn't smile much back then, Olson. You seem to be smiling today. For the 15 years until July 2011, he was responsible for the administration of the agency's housing programs, including the use of tax increment housing funds within the agency project areas and throughout the city, the oversight of housing project developments and housing preservation programs, the administration of tax-exempt mortgage revenue bond financing, the administration of land disposition, and the oversight of the owner participation agreements. The agency tax increment housing program provided over $506 million in loans and grants, leveraging more than $1.9 billion to assist over 9,600 units throughout the city. The agency assisted an additional 2,500 units from other funding sources, and when all the redevelopment agencies were dissolved in January of 2012, Olson oversaw the transfer of those assets to the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. And I think it was the first time that I realized how important preservation really was as it relates to affordable housing, especially when we were able to do a major project, the rehabilitation of King Garvey Co-op, which is still undergoing some challenges, but we were able to get that done and to preserve those over 300 affordable housing units in the Western Addition. It took years. And as you know, we have plenty of others that are, in need of preservation because, as you know, it is a lot more expensive now in San Francisco to build new than to preserve what we have already in our affordable housing stock. And if we lose that affordable housing, replacing over 300 units of affordable housing is just really difficult in this day and age in San Francisco. Olson rejoined the Mayor's Office of Community Development staff as a director in July 2011 and led the conversation of over 3,400 units of public housing to improve management and ownership structures under HUD's Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, the RAD program, which, I had my doubts, but seeing the results of this work has really changed lives for the better. And so I want to thank you for your work on RAD. Olson continued the revitalization of 4 of the most distressed public housing developments under the HOPE SF program. He also worked on the establishment of the Housing Trust Fund, which will continue to invest $1.5 billion in affordable housing production and programs over the next 30 years. Furthermore, he worked on the formation of the $310 million Proposition A General Obligation Bond, which the San Francisco voters passed in November of 2015. and he guided the establishment of the Small Sites Acquisition Program, which we know utilizes a portion of the inclusionary housing fees, the Housing Trust Fund, and other sources to preserve existing rent control housing at risk of converting to market rate housing. And one of the things I want to say about Olson, one of the things I'm going to remember, and I know Jeff Buckley was there, I was there, Valley Brown, who worked for me at the time, was there, and Theo Miller, when we went to go meet with those HUD officials in Washington, D.C. I'll never forget, if many of you know Olson, he's more of a mild-mannered kind of personality, and you would have been really proud of the team of folks who went there to get neighborhood preference. But more importantly, I've never seen Olson so animated in my life in his fight for this neighborhood preference program. I mean, he literally almost jumped out of the chair when he was trying to articulate the points about why we needed to do this now in a place like San Francisco, with a lot of the challenges around the changes in the neighborhood, the gentrification, and how we provide a real opportunity for folks. And because of his work and because of his advocacy, we were able to get HUD to go from saying no, no, no to saying yes, yes, yes. And Willie B. Kennedy Apartments, which is now filled with many residents of the city, many residents of my district who actually had a shot at getting access to those units. I mean, Olson, I can't be more grateful for the work and advocacy of you and your team, and the work you did to help make that possible. And so that is the one thing for sure that will be a part of your legacy. And I know in going to New York with you and meeting with other housing experts and looking at other projects all over the country, many of those folks, they respect you, they look to you for guidance, they look to San Francisco and the work that we've done here under your leadership. And I do know that there have been times where I know I've yelled at you, I've criticized you.
More than once.
You know, we've had our ups and our downs. And what I want to say is, at the end of the day, I appreciate just all of the work that you've done, because the work that you have done here in San Francisco, although many people may not understand it or see it, I see it. I know the lives it's impact. The fact that someone has their housing, or the fact that we've been able to rehabilitate someone's housing unit to get the roaches and the mice and the mold out of their unit so that they could have a fresh, new, healthy unit to raise their kids. I see the work, and I know that getting to that point takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of technical mumbo jumbo and housing policy crap that oftentimes gets in the way and makes it difficult for us to change lives. But you kind of swim through the bureaucracy to make it possible, with all your different layers of financing, with all your creativity, with your following the laws of housing and everything else in between. You have been a great leader in this effort, and we're, sad to lose you, but happy that you are retiring at a high point when RAD is under construction and all these great things are happening with the department. I'm sure we'll still call on you from time to time, because you're still a young whippersnapper and still got life in you. So we're going to need your expertise and your institutional knowledge from time to time, but we are happy that you're probably going to be smiling a lot more now that you're no longer working for the city and county of San Francisco. But on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, Olson, we want to thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for your push. Thank you so much for putting up with so much political stuff, community stuff, and everything in between to make housing better for all residents in need in the city and county of San Francisco. Thank you, and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you very, very much.
So I know other members of the board want to say something, so I'm going to start removing your names from the other discussion, so you're going to have to just remember the order or put it back up. But Supervisor Fewer gave me a statement to read, and then I'll call on people as their names appear. This is Supervisor Fewer. I would like to thank and acknowledge Olson for working with me during my brief time here to identify potential 100% affordable housing sites in the Richmond, and for working hard to expand the Small Sites Acquisition Program to my district. My district recently celebrated with Olson the 100th small site acquisition in the city and the first community land trust on the west side. It could not have happened without Olson and his belief of affordable housing, especially for those who are at risk of being displaced. On a more personal note, Olson was raised in the Richmond and was a close personal friend and classmate of my sister. In my short time on the board, I felt a strong kinship to Olson and appreciated his warmth and attentiveness towards myself and my district. I look forward to seeing you around the neighborhood. Olson and I hope to be able to continue relying on your housing wisdom. Much love, joy, good luck, and good health throughout your long retirement. And that's from Supervisor Feuer. Thank you. And with that, I will call on Supervisor Kim.
I can't believe you're retiring. It has been actually many, many years that I've known you and worked with you, long before I got here on the Board of Supervisors. But I can probably say you may be the department head that I've spent the most time with on my time on the board. I just want to thank you. I've always enjoyed working with you. I've really trusted a lot of the advice that you've given me. And there's so much time that we spent together, whether it was on the dissolution of redevelopment that I know Supervisor Cohen and I probably spent hours and days losing brain cells over trying to figure out how we were going to make that happen and still preserve the affordable housing commitments that we had made in our redevelopment area plans, to 181 Fremont that we were able to do with OCII, which actually is something that I'm very proud of in terms of us renegotiating high levels of offsite in lieu fees here in the city, to the recently open Bill Soro housing on 6th and Howard that we struggled with for many years, to securing 1950 Mission, a site that since my school board days, I know I've been asking MOHCD to help purchase and procure to build affordable housing on, when that site was in my district before it transferred over to Supervisor Campos and then Supervisor Ronan. But I just want to thank you. Your commitment to affordable housing is true and genuine, and your leadership has made a tremendous difference, I think particularly over the last 6 years, when the city has really been very aggressive about pushing forward its commitments and its dollars to ensure that we are building more affordable housing here in San Francisco. So thank you. You will be missed. I'm not sure, I can't imagine MOHCD without you, but I do want to wish you the best in your retirement, and do expect more calls from me now that you're not the department head to get more advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. Olson, when I got the news, it really came as a surprise. You didn't share this in our last meeting. This is, Olson's probably the one person I love to hate, but probably one of the few mayoral staffers that I work with the most closest with when it comes to housing issues, rebuilding public housing in particular. Quite an accomplishment. You're definitely ending on a high note. I'll give you credit for that. You're very smart to do that. Rad housing, getting that up, heavy lift up and in position with the help of Theo Miller and Barbara Smith. I mean, our meetings are not going to be the same. Ladies and gentlemen, I've met with Olson at least once a month for the last probably 6 years. So I really have come to know him, and we have, like any tight relationship, we've had our highs and our lows, and we have fought it out, and I can definitely say that Olson can hold his own and does hold his own. I am delighted that he's going to take some time for himself and his wife and his family. I think it's well-deserved. I hope that he does get those allergies under control. I'm going to miss you, Olson. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, and I think that you have done a great job leading an entire team, a department, under the tutelage of Mayor Lee, who coins himself to be the housing mayor. And you have much to be proud of. I mean, your professional career has just been incredible. How long have you served San Francisco?
27 years.
27 years. That's a long time. And you've had a lot of successes, not only through policy-wise, but also at the ballot box. Mm-hmm. You've had some pretty victorious wins. So all of this is to say that you will definitely be missed from me personally, as well as on behalf of the entire board and the city family. You'll be missed, but I am going to, perhaps we can just have a monthly call just so I can hear your voice and you could have advised me on other upcoming policy issues. I will definitely miss you, and I cherish the time that we've spent together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, President Breed. Just to echo Supervisor Kim, I can't believe you're retiring. It's hard to imagine. As I think about it, our work together was done so much through the Budget Committee over the last 4 years, and you were one of the most incredible department heads to work with. I really appreciate it, especially as we focused a lot on affordable housing the last few years. So I just want to say thank you for all of your work, and really it's been truly a pleasure, and one of the really true down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth people here in City Hall, and we're going to miss you a ton, but I just want to say I wish you all the best in retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Safai.
Yes, strange always to turn my neck around, but I don't want to give you my back. I just want to say I really appreciate these first 5.5 months being in office. I've known you since you were at the Redevelopment Agency. We have a long history with the Housing Authority, but these first 5.5 months working on some really important pieces of legislation on inclusionary and home SF, and the guidance that you've given me on some of the projects that we have in our district and over the years. You will be missed. As the others have said, you didn't let on in any of the meetings that we had that you were on your way out the door. Maybe that's why you said yes to everything I asked. But just kidding. But anyway, great career, great commitment, great leadership for this city, and you will greatly be missed. Thank you very much for your service.
Well, a couple things I wanted to just say. I really have to thank the city of San Francisco because I am a child of the city of San Francisco. As President Breed said, I graduated from Lowell High School. I went to Argonne Elementary, went to Presidio Junior High School, where I met Supervisor Fewer's sister. I went to the Richmond Branch Public Library, where I sort of expanded the world that I knew. I used the city's rec and park facilities, including that small park near my house called Golden Gate. And in those days, it wasn't having mom with you all the time. It was just be home for dinner, please. And it was a great environment to grow up. And I took Muni everywhere. I didn't need Uber, and my mom didn't drive, so it was Muni, and it was great. And it gave me the freedom to go from the Richmond district down to Chinatown and elsewhere through the city. So I'm truly a child of the city. In fact, my dad, who was the chief accountant for the school board, provided the sustenance for us to buy a home in the Richmond and to move out of Chinatown when I was at a very, very early age. And my mom took citizenship classes at George Washington at night so that she could become a citizen here in the United States. So I am definitely owe the city a lot. And one of the things that during my junior high school, so you always have teachers, whether they're in college or sometimes as early as junior high. I had this wonderful teacher in junior high school named Mrs. Olson. Funny how I liked her. And she always insisted that we were going to make a difference, that you were here, you were going to go to school, you're learning something in here, and when you were going to leave, somehow you were going to make a difference. And with the help of 5 different mayors, numerous directors, and a huge, what I call the ecosystem, the affordable housing ecosystem, all of our partners in crime, we have made a tremendous difference over the past 27 years. As I mentioned, 27 years ago, we were not doing housing for the homeless. 27 years ago, we had just begun to use low-income housing tax credits. The ecosystem, as I call it, is the envy of the nation. And only New York City, where we visited to see if we could steal any ideas, can hold a candle to the system and the skills that we have here in San Francisco. And the number of units over that time, 20-something thousand units. And the other part of it is we probably have another 10,000 units in the pipeline. And it's not because of me, it's because of all of us. And, all of us working together and understanding that affordable housing is a priority here in the most expensive city in the country. We want to be able to have neighbors of all different colors and of all different income levels. That's what made San Francisco the great place to grow up in. And we want to continue to maintain that. And your support, whether it's through the bond issues, whether it was through the Housing Trust Fund, a measure, whether it was our annual budget, is so important to making those affordable housing possible. I think among the things that I'm the most proud of, and there's just a lot of things because you all have given me such a great opportunity to do great things on behalf of the citizens of San Francisco. But I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is our work with public housing, where most city governments turn a blind eye and say that's the federal government's problem. The city of San Francisco did not. And the city of San Francisco took on a troubled agency and basically created long-term, permanent, sustainable, affordable housing. Again, most other cities say, well, that's the federal government's problem, and they're going to have to fix it. Well, the administration has changed a little bit, and good Lord, it's fortunate that this city had the foresight to make the changes that it did in the time it did. That work is not done yet. We still have much more work ahead in terms of completing our HOPE SF projects, and I know we will complete them with the support of this board and the support of the voters in the future. So, it's been a long and great road. It's been actually a lot of fun. I can't imagine that it actually has been 27 years, but I am looking forward to having some free time. And I can't thank all the people who have worked with me and for me all these years, because they are really the people who made all this happen. I was just there along for the ride and encouraging at times. So lastly, I want to thank my lovely wife, who couldn't be here today, who has put up with many, many night meetings and many, many weekend meetings and date nights that were housing fundraisers on a repeated basis, who, well, unfortunately for her, will have to spend more time with me in the future. And I will try not to be so anxious as I move into this next stage of my life. So thank you all for the very, very kind words.
Thank you also, and we're truly grateful for your service. And with that, that was our last commendation for today, so we got to return to our regular business. Thank you to folks who are here for your patience. We were talking about item number
4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And next up was Supervisor Yee. And I'm sorry, colleagues, if you can add your names back to I think Supervisor Safai, Supervisor Fewer, if you guys could add your names back to the.
Katie.
And just to be clear where we left off, there was an amendment that was proposed by Supervisor Ronan, and it was seconded by Supervisor Fewer. And we are now with Supervisor Yee has the floor.
Thank you, President Bree. And let's see, what topic are we talking about? It's been a while. So again, I guess I want to repeat that I appreciate Supervisor Tang's work on this particular item. It's been I know it's been a long haul for her, and we've gone through a lot of discussions. And as I looked at the wording more and more, I realized that there were one minor, well, for me, it might be minor, in regards to offering an amendment to the language. What I want to do is I realize that, and everybody should have a copy of this, and it's highlighted in red. What I want to do is introduce language that would include in section 206.3 B2, and it would be at the end of 2 to add the language is not located on Ocean Avenue between Paloma Avenue and 19th Avenue. And let me explain why I'm doing this. There's actually, for the west side, Ocean Avenue has been sort of a hot spot for development in the last few years, adding several hundred units to the housing stock, and we have others on the pipeline right now. And it's worked real well that we're encouraging people and supporting development on there. The other thing that we've been doing in discussion with the community is to look at, and we've started this process, but it takes a long time, to look at how do we actually keep our zoning consistent on Ocean Avenue, because there's some height differences and so forth. Plus, there's been discussions about what type of businesses we like to encourage there and discourage others. And that discussion has been going on. And so when I initially looked at the legislation, and that wasn't part of a committee, so when it was a matter of getting it and skimming through it over and over and over again, I thought that Ocean Avenue itself, when it was, would be part of the waived area or districts or streets that wouldn't be impacted by this legislation. Others would be, I realize, such as West Portal, Terraville, Portola, Monterey, and so forth. But when we looked at it more carefully, I realized that it only had a partial piece of Ocean Avenue, and there were others that would be pretty much along the same corridor that would reach up to 19th Avenue that did not get included. And so what I'm asking is basically, again, with the knowledge that, in fact, indeed, Ocean Avenue by itself probably has more development than all over the west side put together, outside apartments said, in the last few years. So what I want to do is just add this to be included as others have included previously, such as is not in the Norfolk Market Residential Special Use District Planning Code and so forth, Norfolk Market Residential Special Use District. I don't know if the Fillmore neighborhood, there was, President Bree, as I mentioned, this is not my crossing off. I don't know if your Fillmore Neighborhood Commercial Transit District is in there or not.
It's not.
Okay, and then, but there's a whole bunch of them named out here, in which none of them are in my district. We just made a amendment today to include now some language to help District 9 in making sure that they have an opportunity to look at it more carefully. So what I'm asking is, this amendment, I don't feel really changes the thrust of the legislation. All it does is add one more to the list of many that's on there. And again, I regardless, I hope I have enough support to get this amendment on. But I want to make it clear that I have appreciated Supervisor Tang's work on this. And in the beginning last year, or whatever, when she introduced it, I wasn't as supportive, but I think there's been a lot of modifications. And I've been open to these changes, and I see that there's a lot of benefits to what this legislation does. And so that's all I have to say about this.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Yee has made a motion to amend. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Fewer. Supervisor Tang, would you like to respond to the amendment?
I'll just make this really brief, is that I have briefed all the supervisors several times before. Ocean Avenue was always part of the proposal. We had never intended for there to be any waivers. And so at this point, I would just ask that if the supervisor is uncomfortable with Ocean Avenue, to just actually vote against the proposal versus trying to carve out more districts, as we will continue to get other people to ask for carve-outs. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. Supervisor Safai.
You can skip me. I'm going to come back at the end. I think people are talking about the amendments.
Thank you. Supervisor Fewer. Who's going to speak? Supervisor Kim, you're speaking on behalf of Supervisor Fewer? Come on, girl. No.
My apologies, Supervisor. So Supervisor Fewer would like to say, first, I want to thank Supervisor Tang for this legislation and for these newest amendments. I will be supporting this legislation, but I must speak in support of Supervisor Ronen's amendment protecting legacy businesses. Small businesses are the backbone of my district and in many of our other districts as well. While we welcome new businesses, we also treasure our older institutional small businesses. Voters do too, as they approve the legacy business legislation. In my neighborhood, I have legacy businesses like Green Apple Bookstore, beloved by all, not only by Richmond residents, but by the entire San Francisco community, myself, Jane Kim as well. It is, however, an anchor in my neighborhood, and once it is gone, it can never come back. These tried and true small businesses need protection and more consideration in this proposed legislation. So I just want to iterate my support for the amendment proposed by Supervisor Ronen.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim, on behalf of Supervisor Fewer. Supervisor Ronen. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Supervisor Ronen, I need to go to the members who haven't spoken yet. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, my questions were really directed towards Supervisor Ronen and some of the remarks that she made about the legacy business. May I direct them to her?
Sure.
Thank you. Supervisor Ronen, I was curious to know how many legacy businesses are we considering that would qualify for your amendment?
Sure. So through the chair, so currently there are 87 businesses on the legacy registry. And what we did is we took a quick look at the maps that the Planning Commission has provided us and compared it to the addresses of those businesses on the registry. And as far as we can tell, and this is not a perfect science, this was our look, about 11 of them would currently be at risk of displacement because of home SF. Or I want to be very nuanced about that. There's an increased risk of displacement because
an increased
of
risk, but you acknowledge the fact that the legislation has made taken precautions to protect them.
I do, but the way that I understand this legislation, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we are, and this is why I'm in favor of it, because of my understanding, we are creating a program that is more both beneficial and attractive to developers to build more housing and more affordable housing along mostly our commercial corridors. And if that's what we're doing, if we're trying to lure developers to develop in the city because we desperately need housing of all sorts, then we're luring them precisely to the spots where most of the legacy businesses in the city lie. And there's not that many of them. Yes, it will be a growing list. There is an annual cap of 300 businesses that can be placed on, but as we've seen over the last 2 years, only 87 businesses have made it onto the registry, and that's because there is a long, arduous process to get on the registry in the first place. You need to be nominated, then you need to prove your historic value through the Historic Preservation Commission, and then you need to be deemed important to the neighborhood by the Office of Small Business before you finally get on the registry. So these are businesses, and I named some. Supervisor Fewer just talked about Green Apple Books, that are considered a historic asset to the city.
Let me ask a question. Excuse me for cutting you off, just because I just want to be mindful of the people that want to come and speak behind us. So the list is going to be growing. It doesn't necessarily cap, right? Meaning that, yes, annually we can only allow, there will only be 300 businesses added, but it's in perpetuity that this will happen, this legacy business. One of the things that struck me when I was recalling when Supervisor Campos was even introducing this legislation was for legacy businesses to maintain in the neighborhood. What happens if a business gets legacy status but leaves the neighborhood? So a legacy business, say with UCM Jordan's on 3rd Street, for example, and they decide, hey, we're going to expand, we're going to go into the Northeast Mission, or we're going to go into the Soma. They still have that legacy business status, but yet they're no longer connected to the neighborhood that really perpetuated them to get to that status. How do we account for that?
And colleagues, before I let you address that, make sure that you addressed your comments through the president, as I've been reminded by the clerk. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
If I may answer
reminder.
that,
You can say through the president.
Through the
Yes.
chair. To Supervisor
I prefer
Ronan.
president, through the president.
Through
Oh
our
my
esteemed
God.
president.
This is unbelievable.
And answer that question, yes, the Legacy Business Program does allow for businesses to transfer as long as they maintain their name and sort of a signature craft. So the idea is that history and culture is preserved not just in the physical buildings that house them, but in sort of what the business brings itself. So whether it's where you had your first date or where social movements were created in San Francisco or the first place you brought your kid, there are these businesses that have been here for 30 years or longer in the city where so many San Franciscans have made our memories that provide this sort of character and grit and culture and history of our neighborhoods and maintain those. And when they're displaced, we all know what's happening in San Francisco. Commercial rents are through the roof. It is really difficult to find a new spot where they can continue to provide that asset to the city that we officially deem to be an asset in the city.
Thank you.
And so to me, I will just finish up with this. To me, I worked really hard to narrowly craft this. I'm voting for this legislation. I believe in this legislation. I'm not trying to undermine the legislation, but what I'm trying to do is very narrowly craft it so that we're also preserving something else that the city and the voters have deemed also incredibly important to the city, which is these legacy businesses that are very limited in scope by having to go through this arduous process and be on this registry.
Okay, so my question is this is great lengths that we're going to through the president is going through great lengths to preserve legacy businesses, but that's only like a very small element. What about every other small business in the city and county of San Francisco? Don't they deserve a fighting chance to grow and to become a legacy business? I mean, many of the businesses are, as you know, legacy business is going to be around forever, and so businesses that are 5 years short, 3 years short will be a legacy business in a few years. So why not? I mean, why such special treatment? I just kind of feel like we're giving the cold shoulder to already existing small businesses.
Supervisor Ronan?
Through the chair. So I just don't subscribe. I think all of our small businesses are really important and that we should create policies to preserve and protect all small businesses in San Francisco. And by protecting legacy businesses, we're not doing anything to not protect or undermine or not promote other small businesses. What we're saying is when you have been here for 30 years or longer and you have helped create the culture and the history of your neighborhood and you've participated and you've made it this long and you've made memories and you've brought other types of people and businesses to your neighborhood and you go through this really long process and you're deemed historic, then we shouldn't be luring developers to knock you down. And where it's really important.
Thank you. I'm done. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask a question regarding the legacy business amendment to our Deputy City Attorney John Givner, or maybe Anne Marie Rogers from Planning. This seems like, from my perspective, somewhat of a substantive amendment that requires further information to understand truly the impact. And I was wondering if this amendment were made, because clearly, this is, again, the kind of discussion that should have happened in, land use. And I think I'm starting to get pretty disappointed that now here there are a lot of questions around making an amendment like this, which I don't know whether I'm for or I'm opposed to, but I want to understand its impacts. And I think that Supervisor Ronan makes some really good points about it. But I think there's just so much missing information, and I'm trying to understand why an amendment like this, to understand it and its impact, would not need to, if made, require this legislation go back to the planning department to be discussed, and then eventually back to the board and land use. And also just add that it's not as if it has to be tacked on to this legislation. More than likely, there could be trailing legislation where this could have its more robust discussion with its appropriate community input. But I guess I'm just trying to understand how we could have this detailed debate without sending it back to committee or anything else. So one of you can maybe answer that.
Thank you, President Breed. I'll defer to the city attorney to address a specific question about referral back to committee or about to the Planning Commission. But I think you're raising some very important...
Can you identify yourself, Ms. Rogers?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Anne Marie Rogers, Planning Department staff. I think it is raising some very important questions about what would be the overall implications of the suggested amendment. For instance, some legacy businesses have multiple locations, and so I'm not sure if this would apply to all the locations or if they transferred or voluntarily left a location. So I think there are some good questions that should be raised. I know that the Small Business Commission did discuss the matter of legacy business, and they affirmatively decided that this protection should not be uniformly offered to just legacy businesses, but I know the supervisor is familiar with that history as well.
Okay, thank you. And so, Mr. Givner?
On the question of whether it requires referral back to committee or referral back to planning, the answer is legally it does not require another committee hearing with additional public comment or referral back to planning, but the board, in its discretion, is similar to last week's amendments, I think, to this ordinance, could refer this item back to committee with 6 votes or refer it back to planning for additional comment and input from planning or from any other commission like the Small Business Commission on the impacts.
Or specifically look at trailing legislation to have a more robust discussion around this particular amendment.
That's right. If the board, so there are a couple different procedural options. If you wanted to go down that road, you could duplicate the file and send one back to committee, or you could not adopt one back to committee with Supervisor Ronan's amendment. You could not adopt the amendment. Supervisor Ronan could introduce a new ordinance, which would then go to planning and run through committee.
Thank you. Supervisor Safai, are you ready, or you're the only person on the roster that hasn't had a chance to speak?
That's fine. Yeah. I would just say I just want to reiterate a couple of the points that Supervisor Tang did in response to the question about legacy business and some of these other questions. I think that it's very important to protect the integrity of our small businesses. But I think the point that was made by planning is the Small Business Commission, which was one of the strong voices for small businesses in the city, weighed in, did not feel like this was an unnecessary amendment. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to make some tough choices with this legislation. We have to decide at some point there is only a certain amount of available land in our city. I know that that is a very obvious statement, but from a planning perspective and an appropriate land use perspective, we have to look at building density along our transit corridors. And that is exactly what Supervisor Tang has led on over the last 2 years with work with the planning department, in that we want to invest and increase density, and in exchange for that, we want to have a return increased affordable housing. And the important aspect of this affordable housing is that it's going to drive working and middle-class housing like no other program we've had in the history of this city, because there is no funding streams for those two programs. So I would just say that I think that let's keep in mind that, one, the Small Business Commission did weigh on this. This was discussed at land use. We have had robust discussion about legacy businesses and small businesses. And at the end of the day, if people don't choose this program, they can choose the state density bonus program, where there is no protections for any of these small businesses, legacy or not. So what we have put into this is a very thoughtful conditional use process in cooperation, in consultation with the Small Business Commission, and thousands of hours of community outreach. Maybe thousands is a little bit exaggerated, but hundreds of hours over the last 2.5 years with thousands of people, for sure, and a lot of different input. So I would say I know that this is well-intentioned. This is no disrespect to Supervisor from District 9, but I think that this is an unnecessary amendment at this time, because we need to move this forward. We need to build affordable housing for our city, and we do have very thoughtful protections for small business. And if in the future there needs to be trailing legislation and some additional work done on specifically this issue, then I think that we can have that robust discussion at a later date.
Thank you, Supervisor Safai. Supervisor Ronan.
Thank you. I will just say that I don't think you can say the Small Business Commission speaks for all small businesses. It was the District of Council Merchants, which is the group representing merchants all across the city, that is 100% in favor of not only this amendment, but a much broader version of this amendment, that not only would protect legacy businesses that are actually on the registry, but any business that would be eligible to become a legacy business. So I have scaled this back very deliberately and very thoughtfully to impact only businesses that have been deemed by us, by this board, to be worthy of nomination to this registry that will be impacted by this legislation. So I just wanted to make that point. It is our job to look out for the city as a whole and make a decision about what's good for legacy businesses, and this will harm them. And I don't think that an amendment that would not make a big impact on the overall goal of this ordinance, but would make a huge impact on saving legacy businesses is unwarranted.
Thank you, Supervisor Ronan. Supervisor Tang.
I'm just going to say lastly, before we take the vote on these amendments, that a lot of our corridors, for example, yes, Home SF is designed to attract development along merchant transit corridors. Some corridors, such as Terraville Street, struggle. Our small businesses struggle there. Cafes close, another one comes and they close down. We have always had issues with that. And I think that when you have more density and more population of people who can actually walk to the neighborhood coffee shop, to the laundromat, sometimes it actually helps a lot of other small businesses that we're not even thinking about at the moment. So that's just the last point I'm going to make, but I'm ready to vote on the amendments.
Okay, Supervisor Safai.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more point about the idea of identifying legacy businesses in particular. If you do that, if we were hypothetically to do that, you could have a disincentive for the program. There could be people that would potentially not want to support the idea if that was going to be used potentially as a way to not allow for development in particular areas. And as Supervisor Tang has said, in our district in particular, in District 11, we have the highest rate of vacancies and empty storefronts in the entire city. We did just nominate 2 small businesses for legacy business status. They would be the first 2 in our district. And I think that because of the protections we have in place, there still does not mean, let's be clear, there still does not mean that even if you did have this and there were not protections there, that the community can't come together and designate and say that they're not in support of implementing Home SF in that particular area. I would also think about this potentially being a disincentive for the legacy business program.
Thank you. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, President Breed. First of all, I want to thank Supervisor Tang for all of her obviously hard work on this issue. And I just want to thank Supervisor Ronan who came, we chatted about the legacy business thing, which I loved working together with then Supervisor Campos' office on this and your work on it and believe in it as well. I think, and as tempting as it to support this amendment, I think where I come out on it though, is similar to, quite frankly, why I support the underlying intent of this legislation, among others, is that a little bit out of a fear that if we don't pass this, then developers will actually use the state density bonus as opposed to our local one in this area. And to me, that would be worse, actually, for our corridors. And I will tell you, as I alluded to before, in District 2, along Chestnut Street, right outside the Presidio, we had Liverpool Lills, we had the donut store, the Hunt's Donut Store that's been there since I was growing up. These things are going away, which is why I love the legacy business program that I know not everyone loves, but I fully support that. But for me, it's about, and thinking through it, it's about actually making sure that we don't have developers use the state density bonus over ours, and therefore I think it'd actually be worse for these potential sites in District 2. So I want to make sure I explain the reason, because I really appreciate the intent and certainly the thought behind Supervisor Ronan's amendment.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Peskin.
So as this legislation has evolved, I think initially a year and a half ago, my concerns were that this could inadvertently be used to demolish existing housing stock, and the most affordable housing that we have is the housing that we have. But when Supervisor Tang added the provisions that no residential unit would be demolished, removed, or converted, that to me was the swinging point where I could start supporting the legislation. And in so many cases, a business, whether it's a legacy business or not, is accompanied by residential units above. Like in the case of Green Apple Books, for instance, and I just looked it up at 506 Clement Street, there's residential up above that could not be removed or demolished. So that's already, kind of honing and focusing where Home SF can and cannot be used. So I'd like to monitor this, and if we end up with a situation where legacy businesses and non-legacy businesses are being displaced and all of the protections that Supervisor Tang has built in are not working and we're hearing an outcry, then I'd be happy to revisit this around legacy businesses and businesses in general.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Supervisor Ronan.
Through the chair to Supervisor Safai, if a supervisor decides that they'd like to see a particular spot developed under Home SF as opposed to the state density program instead of protecting a legacy business, that's the choice of that supervisor. And I think, again, this is such a limited amendment. Like Supervisor Peskin said, a lot of businesses already are cut out of this ordinance because they have housing attached to the building. So this is a very limited number of businesses that are particularly targeted because with Home SF we are luring developers to build on these sites because we're making it more attractive to them. And so this will impact legacy businesses, something that we have deemed as a city and the voters of San Francisco have voted are another important thing that makes San Francisco, San Francisco.
Thank you. Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. I wanted to just, I think I've said all my points about businesses, but I wanted to move on to one technical issue that we found through the legislation because of all the different versions that it's gone through. So on page 11, line 22, I think there needs to be a strikeout of Chinatown mixed-use district because it conflicts with another section in our legislation.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Tang. I missed the beginning of what you said you were doing.
So I have to make 2 technical amendments because we just caught some typos given the various versions of this legislation. So on page 11, line 22, you need to strike Chinatown mixed-use districts, as well as page 24, line 19, same thing, Chinatown mixed-use district, again, because it conflicts with another portion, another amendment that we made at Land Use Committee.
Okay, Supervisor Tang has made a motion to amend, seconded by Supervisor Safai. And so we have 3 amendments on the floor, and we have no other names on the roster. We will begin with the amendment to do a roll call vote on the amendment proposed by Supervisor Ronan as related to legacy business. Madam Clerk, on the amendment, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peskin?
No.
Legacy business.
Peskin, no. Supervisor Ronan?
Yes.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai?
No.
Safai, no. Supervisor Sheehy?
No.
Sheehy, no. Supervisor Tang?
No.
Tang, no. Supervisor Yee? Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed?
No.
Breed, no. Supervisor Cohen?
No.
Cohen, no. Supervisor Farrell?
No.
Farrell, no. Supervisor Fewer? Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. There are 4 ayes and 7 noes with Supervisors Peskin, Safai, Sheehy, Tang, Breed, Cohen, and Farrell in the dissent.
The amendment fails. Madam Clerk, on the second amendment proposed by Supervisor Yee and seconded by Supervisor Fewer, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peskin?
No.
Peskin, no. Supervisor Ronan?
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai?
No.
Safai, no. Supervisor Sheehy?
No.
Sheehy, no. Supervisor Tang?
No.
Tang, no. Supervisor Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed?
No.
Breed, no. Supervisor Cohen?
No.
Cohen, no. Supervisor Farrell?
Nope.
Farrell, no. Supervisor Fewer? Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. There are 4 ayes and 7 noes with Supervisors Peskin, Safai, Sheehy, Tang, Breed, Cohen, Farrell in the dissent.
The amendment fails. And can we take the technical amendments without objection? Without objection, the technical amendments pass. Madam Clerk, on the item as amended, please call the roll.
On item 4 as amended, Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan?
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai?
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy?
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee?
No.
Yee, no. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell?
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer? Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. There are 10 ayes and 1 no with Supervisor Yee in the dissent.
The ordinance passes as amended on the first reading. Madam Clerk, let's go to item number 5.
Item 5
Number 5.
is an ordinance to appropriate 3,000 in Water Enterprise Fund balance, de-appropriating approximately $18.6 million in permanent salaries, fringe benefit expenses, and non-personnel services, and appropriating approximately $19 million to overtime in the Sheriff's Department, Department of Emergency Management, the Fire Department, Department of Public Health, and the Public Utilities Commission operating budgets to support the department's projected increases in overtime in fiscal years 2016 through 17. And Madam President, a 2/3 vote of all members of the board is required for approval of the Department of Public Health's overtime appropriation portion pursuant to the Charter, Section 9.113C.
Roll call vote.
On item 5, Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan.
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Item number 6.
Item 6 is a resolution to approve a third amendment to the Department of Public Health's agreement for behavioral health services with Positive Resource Center to increase the contract amount by approximately $2.6 million for a total amount not to exceed approximately $10.7 million.
Colleagues, can we take this item? Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Item 7.
Item 7 is a resolution to fix prevailing wage rates for individuals engaged in security guard services and for events at facilities or on property owned or leased by the city.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 8.
8 and 9 together, please,
Thank you, Madam President. Item 8 is a resolution to authorize the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development to expend SOMA Community Stabilization Fund dollars in an amount of approximately $1.2 million to address various impacts of destabilization on residents and businesses in the SOMA. And item 9 is a resolution to authorize the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development to expend SOMA Stabilization Fund dollars in an amount of $10 million to provide acquisition and rehabilitation loans for projects that are eligible under the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development's Small Sites Program that are located within the boundaries of the SOMA.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolutions are adopted unanimously. Item number 10.
Item 10 is a resolution to authorize the acceptance and expenditure of State Transportation Development Act Article 3 Pedestrian and Bicycle Project Grant Funding for fiscal years 2017 through 18 in the approximate amount of $991,000 for the term through June 30th, 2020.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 11 is a resolution to declare the intention of the Board of Supervisors to establish a property-based business improvement district known as the Japantown Community Benefit District to levy a multi-year assessment on all parcels within the district, approve the management district plan and engineer's report, and the district's proposed boundaries map, to order and set a time and place for a public hearing of the Board of Supervisors, sitting as a committee of the whole on July 25th, 2017 at 3 p.m., to direct the environmental findings and the clerk of the board to provide proper noticing.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 12 is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1061 entitled Regulating the Width of Sidewalks to narrow from 21 feet to 15 feet along a portion of the westerly side of Mission Street between 23rd Street and 22nd Street and a portion of the easterly side of Mission Street between 22nd Street and 21st Street, both beginning at the intersection of Mission Street and 22nd Street.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the ordinance is passed on the first reading unanimously. Let's go to the next item, skipping over to the item from committee reports.
Items 18 through 23 were considered by the Budget and Finance Subcommittee at a regular meeting on Thursday, May 18th, and were forwarded as committee reports. Item 18 was recommended as amended with a new title. It's an ordinance to appropriate approximately $322 million of proceeds from certificates of participation to fund the development costs of the 1500 Mission Street office building development and related furniture, fixtures, equipment, or FF&E, technology and moving costs in 2016 through 17, and placing approximately $322 million of proceeds on controller's reserve pending the sale of the certificates of participation, and approximately $28.4 million of the requested $29.4 million for FF&E technology and moving on Budget and Finance Committee reserve, pending a report that identifies number of employees and amount of space currently used by each city department, the number of employees and amount of space proposed to be used by each city department in the new city building, and existing city leases that will be terminated, existing leases that will be backfilled or reused, including square footage of leases, rent savings, and any additional costs.
And Madam Clerk, can you also read the items through item 23?
Item 19 is an ordinance to authorize the execution and delivery of certificates of participation on a tax-exempt or taxable basis, evidencing and representing an aggregate principal amount of approximately $322 million to fund a portion of the development costs for 1500 Mission Street. Item 20 is the resolution to ratify the conditional purchase agreement for the city's acquisition of an office project at 1500 Mission Street. Item 21 is a resolution to authorize an increase of the principal amount of the wastewater enterprise commercial paper program by $250 million from a principal amount not to exceed $500 million to a principal amount not to exceed $750 million, and ratifying previous actions taken in connection therewith as defined herein. And item 22 is a resolution to authorize the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development to submit an application to the Department of Health and Human Services Federal Property Assistance Program in order to acquire the real property located at 1064 through 1068 Mission Street for use in constructing supportive housing for homelessness in San Francisco. And item 23 is a resolution authorizing the Real Estate Division to acquire real property located at 772 Pacific Avenue from the Shu Yik Trust, 1 Robert Yik Trust, 2 and Robert Yik Non-Exempt Assets Trust for the purchases at below fair market value of $5 million.
All right, colleagues, can we take these items, same house, same call? Without objection, the items are adopted unanimously. Let's go to our next item, Madam Clerk.
I will just say for the record, Madam President, that items 24 through 26 were considered by the Land Use Committee meeting on Monday, May 22nd, but were not forwarded to the board as committee reports.
Thank you. And I am going to go to, I'm going to skip over roll call for introductions for now. We do have a 4 p.m. special order, and so I am going to open up public comment. And just to be clear, public comment will be for the 4 p.m. special order as well as general public comment. Madam Clerk, please read public comment.
At this time, the public may provide their comments to the Board of Supervisors as a whole and not to individual members of the board. A public comment is not allowed when an item has been previously subject to public comment at a board committee. Pursuant to the board's rules, direct your remarks to the board as a whole. If you would like to display a document on the overhead projector, please clearly state such and then remove the document when the screen should return to live coverage of the meeting. First speaker, please.
Andrew Yip. Applying one's mercy and wisdom in personal nature with literature of true principle for world rescue. Such missionary works will lead the world toward forever peace and wellness for all. One should having personal cultivation of uprightness, of good heart, and mighty spirit to perform good deeds upon daily pathways. The President and the worldly leaders must develop personal cultivation of truthful and clear character of origin of wisdom and methodology to manage the nation without failure. The perfection of management skills and the success of daily works depend on constant self-improvement with personal cultivation and worthy mission for accomplishment of civil justice and social prosperity. One should work on making well-being for all the worldly people without harm and without missing anyone. Policies must work well on both ends, being upright, smooth, easy, fitting all levels, and in good harmony to be successful. The unity of nationalism in principle means good leadership. The civil justice of democracy in principle means love and kindness in protection for our people. The social prosperity of livelihood in principle means the true success of struggle for political economy. In time, human civilization will having developmental progress over our infrastructure to change the course of our destiny for a better world and a more perfect nation. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yip. Are there any other members of the public that like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. And we will go back to roll call for introductions, beginning with Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, today I rise to continue to express my concerns with Senate Bill 649. This board, earlier led by Supervisor Farrell, took a strong position of opposition last month to Senator Hueso's bill, but it nevertheless continues to make its way through the state Senate with the backing of Verizon and AT&T. As a reminder, this is the bill that would allow wireless carriers the right to install massive equipment cabinets the size of refrigerators with noisy cooling fans on nearly any sidewalk in California. including right in front of the homes of our constituents and our small businesses, many of whom are already struggling with the significant impacts of round-the-clock city construction. Senate Bill 649 would effectively override common sense rules on placing industrial equipment, including backup batteries, antennas the size of parking meters, cooling fans, and cabinets, on or next to light utility poles. The bill language is not only a massive taxpayer giveaway, which would force the city to lease poles for as little as $100 per year, as opposed to the $4,000 a year currently, but seeks to allow wireless carriers to bypass public notification and city approval for taking over our public right-of-way. I've asked the city attorney to draft legislation that would reaffirm that San Francisco enjoys city charter status that would exclude us from the harmful effects of this special interest policy that purports a statewide interest when clearly none exists. Charter cities like San Francisco have exclusive control over municipal affairs, as Buck Delventhal explained to me, a term which is loosely defined and changes over time, but which has included in the past a city's right to control certain land use and zoning decisions and municipal contracts. It is my hope that we can rebut SB 649 by ordinance and in the process strengthen our charter city status and stave off the abject urban blight that will result from SB 649. And finally, I would like to adjourn today's meeting in the memory of a great friend from Nevada, Bruno Selmy. Bruno was the head honchos of Bruno's Country Club, which for those of you who have been to Gerlach, Nevada, where the pavement ends and the west begins, is a remarkable spot. He had an incredible life and passed away at the age of 94. Our condolences to his daughter, Skiki Courtney, who continues to make that great ravioli out there on the edge of the Black Rock Desert.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Supervisor Ronan.
Submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Safai.
Submit.
Thank you. Supervisor Sheehy.
Submit.
Thank you. Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. Today I have two things. One is I'm co-sponsoring a resolution in conjunction with the mayor's office in terms of teacher housing here in San Francisco. I know that it has already been reported in the news, the latest efforts by SFUSD and MOHCD to build housing that could potentially actually be located in the Sunset District. And I really look forward to working with both departments to figure out how it is that we could house more teachers in San Francisco. Secondly, I do have an amendment to a fire safety ordinance that I introduced last year. I am amending the legislation to make it easier for property owners to provide information to tenants about fire safety. Given that there have been many different supervisors working on similar legislation, and I wanted to make sure that we are still able to effectively provide safety awareness to tenants without overburdening our property owners. And so with that, I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. Supervisor Yee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Today I'm asking for a hearing on the newly established Infant and Toddler Early Learning Scholarship Fund. The Office of ECE, I'm asking them to present. This is something that I had introduced several months ago to ask that office to create this program and to provide the guidelines, and so the hearing it will hopefully articulate what the program would be so that we could move on and put the funding that we need behind all those babies that are needing childcare. Thank you for the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Breed.
Thank you. Colleagues, today I'm requesting to sit as a committee of the whole to hear recommendations from the Jail Re-envisioning Working Group at the board meeting on June 13, 2017. For many of you who have been following this issue, when the board voted to apply for state funding 2 years ago, I made a motion to amend the resolution to specifically say the Board of Supervisors shall retain authority to approve or disapprove a proposed jail facility. And we did just that. We rejected the grant to build a new facility in hopes that we could invest in alternatives to mass incarceration and less on a system that exacerbates the cycle of crime and recidivism. Supervisor Kim and I subsequently held 3 different hearings on the proposed jail and alternatives to incarceration and created the Jail Re-envisioning Working Group. The goal of this group was to study these alternatives and how we can reduce the number of jail beds and instead increase investments in mental health, homeless services, and education. The assigned co-chairs, Director Barbara Garcia of the Department of Public Health, our Sheriff Vicki Hennessy, and Taxpayers for Safety advocate Roma Guy, convened this working group for over a year with so many dedicated advocates and members of the public who participated. With 850 Bryant's streets crumbling infrastructure, our escalating homelessness and mental health crises, and another state grant looming above us, it's time for us to hear those recommendations from the working group and move forward with action item. I've asked the co-chairs to provide a general overview of the outcomes of the working group, key recommendations from the co-chairs, timelines and goals around the Hall of Justice, improvements needed around data collection amongst law enforcement agencies and service providers, and most importantly, the intersection of mentally ill and homeless individuals and those who are involved in the criminal justice system. This is not a conversation for today, but many of you know the issue is personal for me as someone who sadly has had the misfortune of having a number of family members involved in the criminal justice system and still having, sadly, my brother serving time. It's important that we make real meaningful decisions around how we as a city invest in violence prevention, education, mental health, and homeless issues instead of simply building a new jail. And I look forward to this continued conversation, and I want to thank my co-sponsor in this effort to hold this committee of the whole, Supervisor Jane Kim. And colleagues, I have 2 in memoriams. The first in memoriam is for Miss Pamela Underwood, who was born on February 27, 1953 in Los Angeles. She earned her undergraduate degree at the University of Southern California and moved to San Francisco, where she attended Hastings College of the Law. Graduating in 1979, she then practiced civil litigation in Sacramento until 1983, when she got her dream job as an assistant district attorney in the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, where she worked for the next 30 years. While in the district attorney's office, Pam proved to be a fair, tenacious, and proactive prosecutor. After being assigned to the misdemeanor trial and preliminary hearings unit, she was selected to hear the brand new assess forfeiture unit, and this was a challenging position as the law authorizing it was new and it involved a novel civil practice area. She spent the remainder of her nearly 30 years in this position, serving the citizens of San Francisco tirelessly as the head of the asset forfeiture unit. She worked closely with several San Francisco Police Department officers and assisted and advised other prosecutors. She filed many cases and opposed members of both the private defense bar and the public defender's office, forming close friendships with many of them. She became a statewide expert and taught prosecutors from all over the state through the California District Attorneys Association. She earned a lasting reputation with attorneys and judges as a knowledgeable, fair, and compassionate prosecutor. Later in her career, she was put in charge of making sure that the people were represented at lifer patrol hearings so that victims' interest would continue to be protected. In August of 2013, Pam became ill and was told she would only have a few months to live, and she basically just passed away not too long ago. When her insurance carrier denied an essential drug as part of her chemotherapy, members of all facets of the Hall of Justice community, including prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, and police and probation officers, came together and raised more than $50,000 so that she could have the medicine she needed. Fortunately, she was able to live nearly 4 more years after that initial devastating diagnosis, and Pam leaves behind a legacy of wisdom, kindness, and fairness. She will be missed by all who loved her. The second in memoriam that I wanted to do today is for a very special person, Mr. Nathaniel Mack Burton, who was born in San Francisco in 1939. He attended George Washington High School, where he was a city champion in both football and track and field. After graduating, he attended San Jose State University, where he continued his football and track and field career. Mack later became a Canadian football star, where he played for the BC Lions. He was an important member of the team that won the Grey Cup, Canadian football's equivalent of the Super Bowl, in 1964. It was the first time the BC Lions won the coveted Grey Cup. His athletic accomplishments earned him a spot in the San Francisco Prep Hall of Fame and the San Jose State University Sports Hall of Fame. Mack was a wonderful person. He loved San Francisco. He was always so proud of his hometown, and he was always so grateful for his family, which include a number of children, including my good friend Sheila Burton Harrison and her grandchildren as well. Mack will be dearly missed by those who knew and loved him. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Couple things, 4 items here I want to talk to you about briefly. First, I'm introducing a hearing request on the coordination between MTA's technical and implementation teams. I'd like to better understand how MTA communicates project management between the departments, and want to work with them to quickly adjust the current scheme, which clearly isn't working. I'm not sure what your experience has been, but sometimes the left hand is not knowing what the right hand is doing, and I want to work with the department to better streamline their work and make sure that we're spending taxpayer money in the proper way. I also would like to have a roll call for introduction. I'm introducing legislation for our city to acquire Shoreview Park from the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure. That's also known as the Department of OCII. In 1979, Shoreview Park was constructed as one of the multiple mini parks built to serve the residents of public housing. This is particularly specifically speaking to the Bayview community. But for almost 20 decades, this one little park, Shoreview Park, has not been fully functioning, a fully functioning park. The playground currently remains fenced off, and we really can't delay this process any longer. So this legislation would allow Rec and Park to make the much-needed capital improvements and investments into Shoreview Park, which the community has long deserved. So I look forward to moving this endeavor forward on behalf of our community. I want to also bring another matter to your attention. I'm asking the budget legislative analysts to explore the fiscal impacts of expanding the San Francisco Working Families Credit to include self-employed workers in the 1099 economy. So currently what's happening is that the Working Families Credit, it's a one-time credit of between $100 to $250 for those workers eligible for the federal earned income tax credit with an upper income limit of around $40,000. So if you make approximately $40,000 and below, you qualify for this tax credit. So since the WFC was introduced in 2006, it's actually provided financial relief for approximately a little less than 48,000 San Francisco families, and returning over $6 million to working class employees. So that's a large chunk of money. And with the rise of the so-called sharing economy across the region and across the nation, this program doesn't reflect the future of work in the state of California. So when I'm talking about the working economy, I'm talking about Lyft drivers, Uber driver, Instacart shoppers, DoorDash delivery workers that live in San Francisco and work to support their families. It's not just a side hustle to add to their wages, but it's also becoming a primary source of income. So over the last 10 years, the number of families receiving the Working Family Tax Credit has fallen, going from over 11,000 recipients to only 700. So part of this is by design. The credit is only available to first-time claimants. But the other part is because of rising wages in the city of San Francisco and the wealth that surpasses the EITC maximum. So what I'd like to do is I want to make sure that we're not missing an opportunity to support economic diversity and to make sure that San Francisco is a home for everyone. So I'm asking the budget legislative analyst to help us understand three key things. First, how many San Francisco residents rely on the 1099 economy as a primary source of income? Second, of those residents, how many would otherwise qualify for the federal earned income tax credit? Third and final, I'd like the BLA to help us estimate the additional budget required to expand such a program to include 1099 workers. And my final request is an introduction for legislation to adopt and update debt policy for our city to specifically ensure that we are in compliance with Senate Bill 1029. And for those of you not familiar with Senate Bill 1029, the Comptroller's Office has long maintained a written debt policy which formally codifies the procedures and the practices surrounding the use and the management of city debt, city public debt. In September of last year, Governor Brown signed Senate Bill 1029, which places additional reporting requirements on public debt issuers. That includes the city and county of San Francisco and would require an existing state commission to track and report on all state and local government debt until it is fully repaid. So Senate Bill 1029 also requires the issuer of state or local government debt to author an annual debt accountability report and to certify that the city as an issuer has adopted debt policies that are consistent with the debt issuance. Now, I know this is all crazy, and some of you may not be interested in debt policy, but you may remember several years ago, there was an incident regarding the misspending of nearly $1.5 million of bond money from the city's SOMA stabilization fund by an employee of ABAG. Supervisor Kim, you might specifically remember this. And Senate Bill 1029 ensures that we would prevent this from happening, that it's increased accountability and transparency about our public bonds and debts so that incidents like this will never happen again. And you may be asking why this is important. It's important because this is your money. This is your taxpayer money, and we want to make sure that we are spending it where we say we are going to be spending it so that mismanagement does not continue to happen. So while the city's Office of Public Finance has already developed such policies and best practices into the issuance and the administration of the city's debt, the debt policy document, that's what I'm talking about, has not been updated to reflect and to codify these policies. So what I'm doing is I'm introducing a piece of legislation to ensure that we are consistent with the state bill in this regard. The rest, I submit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Farrell. Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Fewer will submit. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. Along the lines of making sure that we are watching over taxpayer dollars, in today's Examiner, there was an article describing the situation of 5 of our city departments this year who have overspent their allotted budget when it comes to overtime. Specifically in regards to the San Francisco Police Department, I absolutely want to ensure that our police have the resources that they need in order to keep our city safe. That is why I voted to send this item from Budget and Finance Committee to the full board for a vote last Thursday. And again, this is why I support new academy classes to add human resources to our police department. But the way that this overtime supplemental came to the board this year and for the last couple of years, and let's be honest and call it what it is a supplemental for overtime dollars already spent by the department, and this just isn't really acceptable. This is public money being spent by the department that they do not have approval from the board to spend. Not only is this a violation of our administrative code, it puts the board in an awkward situation year in and year out. We're asked to approve the spending of taxpayer dollars after those dollars have already been spent. I want to make sure that this does not happen again for any of our city departments, so I'm asking the city attorney, with the support of our Comptroller's Office, to begin drafting legislation that would mandate a financial audit of any city department that overspends its allotted overtime budget. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. And Madam President, there being no other names on the roster, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Okay, let's go to the items for adoption without reference to committee.
Items 18, sorry, Madam President. Let me just turn to that section of my agenda. Items 29 through 35 are being, this is the adoption without reference to committee, Madam President?
Yes.
Items 29 through 35 are being considered for adoption without reference to committee. A single roll call vote may enact these items unless a member would like an item to be severed, may be considered separately.
Thank you. And since the House has changed, Madam Clerk, on the Supervisor Farrell?
That's fine, sorry.
Madam Clerk, on the items for adoption without reference to committee.
On items 29 through 35, Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan.
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang. Tang, absent. Supervisor Yee. On items 29 through 35, without reference.
Oh, aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. And Supervisor Tang on the without reference items 29 through 35. Tang, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Those items are adopted unanimously. Okay, colleagues, just for clarity, we have just two matters to address on our meeting today, and we have a 5 p.m. special order, which we cannot call until 5 o'clock, but we can call our 4 p.m. special order, which requires both a hearing and a closed session. So at this time, Madam Clerk, please call items 13 through 15 together.
These items are being called together, scheduled pursuant to a motion M17-082, approved on May 16, 2017. The board has agreed to convene a committee of the whole for a public hearing today to consider a proposed resolution endorsing settlement of the lawsuit filed by Airbnb, Inc. and HomeAway.com, Inc. against the city and county of San Francisco and authorizing a tolling agreement in that lawsuit approved by the board on May 16, 2017. Item 14. Apologies.
Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Apologies, Madam President. Item 14 is a closed session for the Board of Supervisors to convene on May 23rd into closed session for the purpose of conferring with or receiving advice from the city attorney regarding existing litigation related to the endorsing of a settlement of the lawsuit filed by Airbnb, Inc. and HomeAway.com, Inc. against the city. And item 15 is a resolution to endorse the settlement of this lawsuit filed by Airbnb, Inc. and HomeAway.com against the city involving a challenge to ordinance numbers 104-16 and 178-16, which regulate hosting platforms that provide booking services for short-term residential renters, and to approve the tolling agreement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, today's Committee of the Whole is being conducted to hear public testimony on the settlement of a lawsuit and tolling agreement with Airbnb, Inc. and HomeAway.com, Inc. And the closed session we will be going into in regards to the matter. So let's open up this hearing. And colleagues, can I have a motion to excuse Supervisor Farrell? Moved by Supervisor Safai, seconded by Supervisor Sheehy. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Farrell is excused. Let's open up this hearing. Open it up for public comment. If there are any members of the public who'd like to comment on this hearing or the closed session, now is the time to do so.
Good afternoon. My name is John Cantor, and I'm a resident in District 1. First, I'd like to start by wishing Supervisor Fewer a speedy recovery. Back when the board passed its most recent legislation that was, I had written a letter to the mayor imploring him to consider strongly vetoing the legislation, because I thought with the recent court rulings that there was a unique opportunity for the city and the collective short-term rental platforms of the city to work collaboratively to come up with a solution. And I think the settlement that's before the board today is just that solution. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to clear the slate and work together to allow short-term hosting to continue in the city with hopefully putting all outstanding issues to bed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Peter Kwan. I'm a host. I've been a host for 5.5 years. I'm registered, and I pay all my hotel taxes to the city. I'm also the co-chair of the Home Sharers Democratic Club. I'm here today to urge you to support the settlement agreement before you today. This agreement has been the work of many parties over lots of months discussing and coming to a compromise. I've seen the agreement. I think the terms are fair. I believe that if implemented, the terms will also make a very big difference in reducing the number of illegal listings on the various platforms that service short-term rentals. This is an agreement which has broad support, not only amongst the hosting community, but also in my discussion with executives of the Hotel Association, by the Hotel Association itself. So I really hope that you will give this settlement agreement your approval and give it a chance to work once it's implemented before considering any more restrictive amendments to the short-term rental ordinance to impose further restrictions on short-term rental rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Supervisors. I'm Lorraine Rourke-Bader, and I'm a short-term rental host. I host a room in my home, hosted stays only, and I've been registered and hosting since February 2015, and I'd like to thank everyone, the Board of Supervisors and other people who have worked so hard to reach this resolution of the problems that have existed. And I just would like to respectfully request that the board endorse the settlement, and I'm hoping that this will lead to a stabilization of the regulations. And just to say that for many of us in the hosting community, the income that we earn from short-term hosting is instrumental in maintaining our homes and supplementing our retirement. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm Rodolfo Cancino, a former teacher. My wife and I rent a small room in District 5. I'm merely reiterating a lot of the things that have been said already. That the settlement seems to be a very good one from everything I read in the newspaper, and I read the entire article regarding that. I'd say please give it a chance to succeed before just trying to change things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Paul Lowry. I'm a resident in Supervisor Yee's district. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this afternoon. I see a lot of new faces since I've been here last time. I've been up at this podium at least twice on this issue. So I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. When my daughter left for college about 3 years ago, we faced a new financial situation. We faced large college tuition payments, and we were still supporting my elderly father, who's 82 years old. Were his sole source of support. We became members of the so-called sandwich generation, and we looked around and decided, what can we turn to? We had new space in our house because my daughter was now in college, and we had the opportunity to do home sharing. So for the last 3 years, thanks to the regulations that have been in place, we've been able to help support my daughter and my father. I want to thank you for that opportunity, and I hope it will continue if you support this new resolution or the settlement with the city. I am among the first 100 registered users in San Francisco, or home sharers, blazing the trail with many of the people behind me in the setting up the procedures and policies that have been worked out over time. And I want to tell you, it was a little bit of a challenge to start home sharing, to let people into our house that we weren't familiar with. That's not something that's easy to do at the outset, but it's turned out to be a really wonderful thing. In short, since I have a little bit of time left here, I am fully in favor of the board and the efforts you have tried to put in place to clamp down on illegal, unregistered home shares. They give us all a bad name and are not good for the city. Supporting this settlement will prevent that from happening and give us all an opportunity to continue as home shares. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Ivan. Nice to see you all again. Actually, let me take that back. It's not. I'm tired of coming down here. As much as I love this beautiful room, I really don't like having to take time out from my day to drag my butt down here to talk to you about home sharing every few months. It's been an eye-opening experience the last few years, coming and getting involved politically here. I've learned that some of our supervisors don't really trust their constituents or sometimes even seem to pay attention when we come down to talk with them. I've learned that some of our supervisors seem much more interested in grandstanding and speaking passionately than in actually trying to achieve anything of substance. I've learned that a $25 registration fee can quickly become $250 if you look away for a moment. Mostly I've learned that any agreements here in this room don't always end up as law. So I thought I'd come down today one more time to try to make sure that doesn't happen to the settlement before all of you. Please accept the settlement that's before you and let us all get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Shandor Halas. I live in the Marina district. I do home sharing. My wife and I retired. My wife and I, we both retired. I'm 77, and right after I retired, I came down with emphysema and COPD. As you know, Medicare only pays so much medication. After that, you fall into this donut hole that is extremely expensive. Anybody who has to take inhalers to literally breathe and live, you know what I'm talking about. So this extra money we make is literally let me walk on the streets instead of sending home next to my oxygen tank. So please keep this up and let me have this opportunity to make some little money and then live reasonably well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name's Linda Lighthizer. I'm a 47-year resident of San Francisco. I live in District 11. I'm also a short-term rental host. I also am a member of the Golden Hosts, which is a club that we formed for senior hosts to be able to support other senior hosts, because we find this is the fastest growing demographic throughout the hosting community. And it's a way that seniors can have the extra funding necessary in their golden years to be able to remain in their homes and in their city. So I urge you very strongly to support this service, this particular agreement, the settlement agreement. It's been well thought out. It's been worked to death. I know so many people put so many hours into this, and this is a way for us to move on, to get to the place where we can do other positive things. Our host community stands ready to do more engaged activities with the homeless and other projects and charities within the San Francisco community. Coming to City Hall over and over to work on this legislation, yes, it's been interesting, but we want to move on. Please support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Dear supervisors, my name is Kenix, and I have been hosting on Airbnb for almost 4 years. The reason I started hosting was because my housemate and his family moved out while I was pregnant and couldn't find a job to pay almost $5,000 in rent. Airbnb helped me to survive by renting out the empty rooms and helped our family stay in the city. Airbnb helped us, and we also hope to help local businesses. We have convinced many non-English speaking guests to stay longer by helping them to live in San Francisco. We support local businesses by introducing our guests to local food, libraries, and small business. By volunteering, we also help the community to build more galleries and mini museums. So all in all, me and my family are really happy and grateful to see San Francisco and Airbnb reached this settlement and make San Francisco attractive as it always has been. So please vote to approve this settlement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, again. My name is Eric from District 7. I've been hosting for 4.5 years, and that's been helping me to stay in my house all this time. Me and my partner are HIV positive. I'm a cancer survivor twice, and without home sharing, I wouldn't be able to stay in my house. So I would thank you. I thank you, the city, for letting me do what you've been all doing. And I want to thank you in advance for any agreement you can come up with that help us stay in the city we love to. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Thank you very much. I'm a host with my wife and kids in the Sunset District, District 4. And just wanted to, you've heard all our stories, so I won't repeat those, but I ditto. Just really pleased that you've reached this agreement and hope you go ahead with it and approve it. And just remind you that some people may think United States, they think of walls now, but in San Francisco, we always think of bridges. And we're a city that welcomes people from all parts of the world. Some come here for a day, some come here for a month, some come here for a lifetime. We came here for a day, and then now we're here. But I just want you to remember that, and I hope you continue to support home sharing. There's a lot of issues with it, of course, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think this agreement addresses that very well, and I thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi. I'm Ed Bell. I'm from District 8. I've come up here a number of times over the last few years on behalf of home sharers and discuss how seniors have a difficult time completing some of the required computer-generated forms. I generally start by saying I've lived in San Francisco for almost 60 years and in my home for over 30. Well, now I can say I've lived in San Francisco for over 60 years and am officially a senior citizen and have a Medicare card. I've reviewed some of my notes with friends, and he made an interesting comment telling me that no one is going to be sympathetic to a homeowner who has had a home in Noe Valley for over 30 years. I realize he's right. So instead of talking about what my home means to me, my family, and close friends, I'd like to focus on what some home sharers are doing for their neighborhood. A few months ago, I rented my room to a senior lady, I think she also has a Medicare card, who came to San Francisco to be a bone marrow donor for her brother. There aren't any large hotels near her brother's house, only home sharing. Most mornings, she walked to her brother's home to have breakfast with him, then walked back to the room. She called her brother in the afternoon. If he felt well, she would have lunch with him and then possibly dinner. She could not have had this quality time with him if she had to take a bus from the hotel district, nor could she have stayed in San Francisco as long as she did if she had to pay hotel prices. When leaving, she thanked my wife and I for helping her make this time special for the two of them. I would like to ask you to support the settlement agreement so that I can stay in my home, and perhaps and most importantly, so that my wife and I can contribute and provide valuable service to our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Greg Wong, and I've been home sharing for about 4.5 years, and this is my new guide dog for the blind, Oliver. He's a big supporter of the new resolution, and please give it a chance to work before making more amendments to it. I think it's fair and equitable between all parties, and I would like to highlight something I noticed the previous speakers did not say, and that is the pride that each of us home share hosts take in sharing our homes with travelers and guests from other places. I consider each of our home share hosts to be a small ambassador for the city of San Francisco. When people who stay with me ask for activities to do, I try to keep them in my neighborhood of North Beach, which adds to the revenue base to the city and it helps promote the neighborhood. So just remember that the home share hosts, we take a lot of pride in what we do, and we try to put the best face on what we do and highlight the city, and that encourages more people to come here, spending their money here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Chairman King. I'm the resident of Sunset District. I'm here to support B&B and home share. I have many friends from out of state and overseas. They often come here for business meetings, and they usually stay in the hotel for a couple of days a week to finish their business. Then I invite them to my home, and I bring them to local restaurants, local community, local high school, libraries. And I think Airbnb and home sharing is really good, and they bring business to support our local district, and we support our local economies. Thank you. That's what I say.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Major. I'm a restaurant owner. I believe that our small business community really benefits from home sharing.
Ma'am, please speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Please take that into account for future decisions regarding home sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Tammy Tang. I don't do, I cannot see it. I didn't attend them do the short time, but they sometimes they have to do so. Some of the family visit, so they have to do it. So sometimes the visitor want to pay this year. Don't allow the flexibility on how the arrangement. Hopefully, they will find a long-term lumber. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Michael Klawansky. I live in District 6. I'm in support of Airbnb as well as everyone else. I've registered with the city. I've got a business license. I've done everything by the book. And I think this new agreement would be good for everyone as it does the same. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nelson, and I was born and raised here in San Francisco's District 3. You've all heard from many home hosts who've been positively benefited from home sharing, but I'm here today to share with you a different perspective as a small business owner. Home sharing attracts visitors to San Francisco, to districts where you'll never see a Hilton or a Marriott, districts like the Excelsior, where my mother, my father, and I run a small Chinese takeout restaurant, kind of a true family, mom and pop shop. And when visitors come to live, to shop, to eat in this neighborhood, it benefits not only my family's business. There's the Filipino restaurant down the block. There's the bakery next door, and honestly, the whole community. And I'm just one story. I think that other locally operated, family-run small businesses will agree that we all win. So I'm here today to encourage you all to support the deal, the settlement deal, and so that we, hosts can win, so that small businesses can win, and I think ultimately that the city can win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm in District 3. I am very much glad to hear about this settlement with Airbnb with the city, and I am, as an advocate for startups, we know that San Francisco is currently the global leader in startups. But that title and the associated wealth that comes in with that can easily be lost if the city legislates inappropriate and ineffective legislation causing startups to choose other cities to move into to grow. And I am welcoming that this current legislation and this settlement is a step forward. And I also like what Supervisor Cohen had in terms of looking into the 1099s. Such things are ways of looking at new revenue streams and new revenue models, and that is something that we should all look into rather than staying in a status quo of last generation's methods. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Stella Charbakshi. I'm a resident of Lower Nob Hill area, resident of city for over 40 years. I'm a property owner. I rent one room in my home for a lot of people. My guests are basically young people coming in for job interviews or starting to get settled in the city. Income from home sharing is my bloodline. It allows me to stay in the city, and I'm very happy to see that a lot of work that has been set forth by the board and a lot of other people in the city and host as well. Now we have a settlement, and I hope that the board approves the settlement and allows people like me to continue, stay in the city, and then now start working with the Board of Supervisors and other community agencies about other issues that we have in the city, homelessness and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
My name is Otto. I live in District 6. I've been a host for over 2 decades now. I live in a building with some 80 other people of varying calibers. It's been ups and downs, a certain amount of vermin, fires, plumbing leaks. You know, I would like to think that if there's some way to get some money out of these people. Before I lived in the kind of housing I live in now, I lived in a share rental. And that's the kind of housing that's actually being taken off the market by these kind of systems. So I'd like to see if there was some stream of money that could go towards homeless permanent housing out of this.
Thank you for your comments. Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that'd like to speak on this particular hearing?
It'd be remiss if I'm just getting up here and speak on public comment anyway. You know,
this is not general public comments, Mr. Washington.
You're talking about airborne, but I have a comment. I'm not a homeowner. I wish I was. I'm speaking up here. I didn't see nobody up here, African American, come up here talking about they want to share a home because they don't have a homes. So I'm up here on the issue of the African American scratch that. The black out-migration. I'm just making a comment on a parallel how this city operates. And I convey with everybody, you should share it if you want to, it's your homes. But I'm also up here to show the parallel of when I'm going to speak up here publicly. We as African American blacks are in a state of emergency. I wish we had a cracker box that we could share with somebody. Let alone, it's good. But where is people look like me have a home? Oh, they're in public housing. Oh, that's being controlled now by the developers. Oh, that's also being controlled by the nonprofits. Oh, that's going to kick us out. Oh, I'd like to come back here in 2 or 3 years and to tell you about, what happened to us? What happened to the black community in the city by the bay? No, everything's not okay. That's why I'm here letting the world know. My name is Ace, and I'm on the case.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I've been a resident of District 11, the Excelsior, for the past 10 years. My supervisor is Asha. I'm a registered host. I am not a homeowner. I don't own a home, but I've been able to stay in the city because I've gotten very lucky and I'm a home share. I've been up here many times to speak in support of sensible regulation so that myself and our community can continue hosting. Home sharing provides myself and my roommates our home, our stability, our countless benefits to our neighborhood, the Excelsior, and determines our ability to stay in San Francisco. We appreciate the conscious considerations these agreements take. we want to see this settlement accepted. We see this as a huge step in the right direction. We hope that the supervisors will accept this settlement, and it offers a solid peace of mind for our futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in regards to this particular hearing? Seeing none, this hearing has been held and is now filed and is closed. Madam Clerk, before we go into our closed session, let's go to the 5 p.m. special order. Please call those items.
Items 16 and 17 are the special order at 5 p.m. This hearing is scheduled pursuant to a motion, M17-058, approved on April 11th, for the Board of Supervisors to convene in a committee of the whole for a public hearing to consider objections to a report of delinquent charges for code enforcement cases with delinquent assessment of costs and fees pursuant to the provisions of Building Code sections. Item 17 is the resolution to approve a report of delinquent charges for the assessment costs submitted by the Director of the Department of Building Inspection for delinquent charges.
Thank you, colleagues. Today's Committee of the Whole is being conducted to hear public testimony on a report of delinquent charges for code enforcement violations submitted by the Director of the Department of Building Inspection and to consider approving the underlying resolution. So let's open this hearing. First, we will hear from the department, and then we will open it up to public comment. And I'd like to let members of the public know that if they are here for the 5 p.m. special order and they would like to provide comment, there will be also an opportunity after public comment to have a discussion with the department to try and come to some resolution on your particular individual issue. So you're welcome to give public comment, or you're also welcome to touch bases with the department directly, and there will be someone to listen to your concerns after this hearing is held.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Alan Davison, Senior Housing Inspector with the Department of Building Inspection. The Department of Building Inspection is before you today requesting an imposition of special assessment liens on properties for enforcement cases. Previously transmitted to you was a report of delinquent charges dated April 24th, 2017. And prior to today's hearing, we've also had 2 in-house hearings for owners to come down and discuss their outstanding assessment of costs. The Department appreciates your support in approving the report of delinquent charges, for it is an important and useful cost recovery tool for our department. I would also like to thank Angela Calvillo and I'd like to thank Lisa Samara and their staff for all their support.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. And can I ask a question about this report that you have? On number 254 and 255, were those, is that a line striking through, or has those been removed?
The lines have been, the items with the lines through have been removed from the report.
Okay, so can you confirm that? Because I can't tell if these are messed up lines or they're lines that strike through the particular item. So can you confirm with me if 254 and 255 have been removed?
Yes, they have, Madam President.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this particular item? Please come forward for public testimony. You can speak on this item, but also once we close public testimony, you can talk to Mr. Davidson directly.
No.
It's up to you.
Hi, good evening. It's my first time coming. I'm not too sure about the procedure. But I am here for I guess a different matter. Should I speak about it now or wait till it's called?
Are you speaking on this particular 5 p.m. special order? Because we've already taken general public comment. We've taken comment for the home share lawsuit. And this is specific to the hearing related to the 5 p.m. hearing based on the list. Are you looking at a list of properties here?
I believe I am on the list, but at first I was going through that with this gentleman. I'm not too sure which line number I am.
Okay.
But I am here for the 5 p.m.
Okay, so this is your opportunity for public comment.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is John Chow. I'm here for, I guess, is it file number 170336?
Is there a property address, sir?
Oh, yes, there is. The property address is 2 Banbury Drive.
Banbury with a V?
Yeah, with a B.
Oh,
and
it's page 1 at the bottom, line 33, 34, and 35.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I see. Yeah, I'm here because I'm the homeowner, and in May of on May 14th of 2015, I retained a contractor to assist with erecting, doing some work on my property, including building a fence. And the fence work, we later received a notice of violation saying that that there wasn't a handrail that was there, and also there was issue with the height of the fence. Subsequent to that, I obtained an extension request for a building permit, and I noted in that extension, which I have here, on September 13th of 2016, that the work has been completed and that I just need to extend a building permit to have it signed off. And the extension stated that I would have to complete this work by May 3rd of 2017, May 3rd of 2017. So my contractor was able to obtain the final inspection signed off on April 11th of 2017. And after he signed off, he told me that everything's fine, that there's no need to do anything else. I found out later on that...
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. We have to give everyone 2 minutes, but you will have a chance to talk to Mr. Davidson once we're done with hearing from the rest of the members of the public. So you'll have an opportunity to bring your concern to him.
Okay. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. And if there are any other members of the public who'd like to speak on this 5 p.m. Hearing, please join us. Sir?
Madam President and the Board of Supervisors, I came to represent the New Strangers Home Missionary Baptist Church on 1442 Fulton Street, which I am pastor. And I don't quite understand the protocols, but forgive my ignorance. But we were in the process of getting some work done on our electrical situation, and an inspector came out, which we appreciate that work. And so what I want to find out, the lien that has been put against our property, other than paying the total amount immediately, is there any kind of a system going forward that we can make payments? Because we are a small congregation of about 30 people, and we've been in ministry for our church since 1954, and we've served our community in a relevant way. And so we want to continue, but it's very difficult, especially like, for instance, last Sunday, we couldn't attend church because of the beta breakers. And when you don't attend church, your revenue falls. And city streets also hampers us in providing getting revenues from our people. So, but we want to be good corporate citizens or good nonprofit citizens, but we need an opportunity to go forward and pay this or have it forgiven or whatever the situation might be. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And if you would just wait patiently, Mr. Davidson would join you outside in just a minute. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment on our 5 p.m. special hearing? Seeing none, this hearing has been held and is now filed, and it is closed. Supervisor Yee.
Quick question. There's several of the listing here that has sort of multiple charges for the same address. I mean, can you explain what that's about?
Yes, some of the properties on the list have multiple complaints at the property with different complaint numbers and different fees. So they come across on the sheet as 4 or 5 different addresses, sometimes 6 and 7 at times. When we consolidate at the end, we accumulate them together and send them as one parcel to the recorder's office.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Davidson if you can join those 2 gentlemen outside and come back. We're going to have our closed session, and so come back with your report and recommendations before we approve this item.
If you'd like, Madam President, we can remove those now if it pleases the board, and we'll discuss with them out there ahead of time.
All right, colleagues, we want to strike lines 33, 34, and 35, as well as strike lines 97, 98.
So moved.
That's correct. 97 and 98, and then 33, 34, and 35. Correct.
Okay, moved by Supervisor Peskin, seconded by Supervisor Yee. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, the motion is approved. And on the item as amended, Madam Clerk, can we have a motion to excuse Supervisor colleagues, can we have a motion to excuse Supervisor Cohen? Moved by Supervisor Safai, seconded by Supervisor Tang. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Cohen is excused. And on the item as amended, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan? Aye. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai? Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy?
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Fewer? Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. There are 9 ayes.
The resolution as amended. Madam Clerk?
Madam President, I thought we had excused Supervisor Farrell. My apologies.
For the other item.
Supervisor Farrell? Farrell, aye. There are 10 ayes.
The resolution as amended is adopted unanimously.
Thank you very much, President.
Okay, thank you. So we're done with that, and gentlemen, you'll be joined outside to try and resolve your issues. And with that, colleagues, let's a motion to go, we're going to go back to items 13 through 15. Is there a motion to excuse Supervisor Farrell? Moved by Supervisor Tang, seconded by Supervisor Yee. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Farrell is excused. Can I entertain a motion to go into closed session? Moved by Supervisor Peskin, seconded by Supervisor Safai. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, we will adjourn into closed session. Thank you to the members of the public for being here today, and we're going to ask that you vacate the room at this time so that we can go into closed session. Thank you, sir.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
Are we back? Okay, we are now back in open session. Is there a motion to not disclose what was said in closed session? Moved by Supervisor Tang, seconded by Supervisor Peskin. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, we will not disclose what we discussed in closed session. And on the item approval of the lawsuit, Supervisor Peskin, you want to make the motion?
I would like to make a motion that we adopt item 15, the settlement of the lawsuit and tolling agreement, Airbnb Inc. and HomeAway.com versus the city to receive $80,000 plus $10,000 annually.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin, seconded by Supervisor Ronan. Madam Clerk, can we take that without objection?
No, Madam President, we have a different house. Let's do a roll call.
Roll call, please.
Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan?
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai? Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy?
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee? Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Fewer? Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. There are 9 ayes.
The resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please read the in memoriams.
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individuals. On behalf of Supervisor Peskin, for the late Mr. Bruno Selmy, on behalf of President Breed, for the late Miss Pamela Underwood and Mr. Nathaniel Mack.
All right, Madam Clerk, is there any other business before us today?
That concludes our business for today.
Colleagues, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.